better than you are this time.
All right.
Okay.
Here we go.
Okay, so somebody give us a sound check. Make sure it's working okay. Oh, let's see who we got watching. 5 people so far. Oh. Okay.
Cool.
If Chris says we're good, we're good.
All right.
Okay.
Hey, David. Truth seeker.
Well, it's been an eventful week for me here. I was getting a nice routine going out at the ranch, getting 100 pounds a day, etc. And then Friday evening, when I was leaving, coming through the gate, after I locked the gate, I noticed there was steam coming off from underneath the truck, and that was because the exhaust was squirting coolant. So, as most of you people have seen, we have a little head gasket issue. That appears to be the only problem. And Jim and I will be putting it back together tomorrow. With any luck, it should be done tomorrow.
I would think so.
Yeah, I don't.
Not too hard to work on.
I was able to find a gasket. It wasn't a gasket kit, but I could get a gasket, and I could get an intake gasket kit, and I could get a carburetor gasket and stuff like that. So it looks like we should be able to put it all back together. You never invite Murphy, but he always shows up. He's the immortal party crasher.
Balancing agent.
Yeah. So anyhow, so we'll try and get that together tomorrow, and while we're at it, we're going to retorque that driver's side head. I guess it's a new thing. You know, the very first vehicles were they electric or steam, little one?
Some were steam and some were electric.
I know steam and electric were the first thing. Then it was internal combustion. So, you know, now they're making electric. I'm going back to steam.
Yeah.
You know, did a good job on the pistons.
Yep. Cleaned them right up.
Pistons are looking nice and clean on those 2 cylinders there. And it's a little funny because the front cylinder also, the piston is slightly cleaned on one side. Whereas the rear cylinder, it's just, you know, got crud on it. So it's like, okay, looks like that other one was getting ready to go too.
Maybe.
Because
there is a mark on that thing.
Yeah. So anyhow, that's of course #1 priority, because the most important thing this week is Eva is going to have her surgery on Friday. I'm going to try and remember to take my camcorder and my computer, and so all I have to do is find some internet up there. And it was broke in the middle, Chris. But anyhow, so I'll try and ship out a real quick little video Friday afternoon, letting you all know basically what the situation is. If you don't see anything, don't worry. It may just be I'm having trouble, because, I mean, Eva's #1, you know, and I know you all know that. But anyhow, when it comes to the live stream next week, while there is a finite chance, thank you, Gold Panner, that we'll have the live stream on Monday, there's a much better chance it will be later in the week. It's just however it goes. But Monday, Eva could very easily still be in the hospital. So that's the basic situation there. And would appreciate, of course, all your prayers on Friday. And got a good support system up here. So we shouldn't have any significant problem. The only reason I had a little bit of a problem this weekend was because this character was out actually working where he didn't have cell phone coverage, this slacker. And so he wasn't there for me, but that's okay. I'll forgive him this time. And, and we managed stuff. Oh, don't worry. I don't think she'll be much into dancing for quite a while, Chris. But anyhow, so say we've got groceries in and laundry done and parts run and everything else. And BC Gold and Gold Panner are sending you their best, little one.
Thank you.
And is there going to be a tinfoil hat tonight, I presume?
Most likely. No idea what yet. Have to research.
She still has to research her tinfoil hat, but that's normal.
First.
Yeah. Chris sends hugs. And so anyhow, so that's kind of the personal situation there. As you were noticing on the videos, the leaching situation, with the exception of recovery from solution, seems to be going just fine. The pad cover seems to be working quite well, and the procedure seems to be rolling fairly smoothly. So I was just rocking along until the truck blew up. But that seems to be going pretty good. Chris is doing some research. He's getting some resin and such, and sending me some interesting things that I'll make some interesting videos on. We're also going to see, he's going to send me some stuff. The idea is to have a semi-quantitative chemical test for gold. In other words, I can do a spot test on, I believe it's a ceramic plate with the solution, and get a good idea of how much gold is in it in real time for, I presume, pennies. And once you get things set up, so it should be some interesting stuff coming up. We were supposed to go to the mine this weekend, and the truck kind of screwed that up. We were supposed to go up there and get a bunch more ore. Jungle Fever sends his best too.
Thank you.
And so anyhow, I'm going to be less than 1,000 pounds of ore at the ranch here right quick. I think I'm right around 900 right now, unprocessed ore. Terry Curry sends an obscene greeting and best wishes.
Thank you.
And so anyhow, the idea was to go out and get another 1.5 tons roughly of ore was the goal this weekend. And of course that didn't happen. So such is life. Don't know how soon we'll be able to get back up to the mine after the operation. So I may actually run out of ore for a bit. Not sure.
Give you a chance.
I'm anticipating being pretty much stuck at home for about a week, where I'm going to have to be very, very close to Eva. But we'll see how that turns out. One problem being at the ranch is I would be out of cell phone coverage. I'd only be 8 miles away, but out of cell phone coverage. However, again, there's people that can help her in a hurry if needed, if it was an emergency. But we'll work on some things. We had lots of offers of help. I believe so, Argonaut. Chris will no doubt answer momentarily. Probably, Chris. It's on my list. As a matter of fact, it was on my list 2 years ago. We actually have some little handhelds. I don't know. It's on the other side of some hills. So
Yeah,
I think
there's
we'd have to have line of
one
sight.
mountain range in the way.
Yeah, it'd have to be something that would have to be able to go over the mountains or hit a repeater, something like that. I don't know if they have ham repeaters over here.
I would assume there is. I mean,
They probably
ham
are.
is popular enough, and with even with the fire departments and a lot of the different running on the different radios they're running. So
Yeah, I say he's doing all the theoretical stuff. Chris is a much better theoretical chemist than I am. I've done a lot more actual mining, and it works out really well. He's again been very, very helpful. So, say we'll be working on that in the near future here. Tonight, I'd like to, in just a little bit here, get into what is adsorption and desorption, and how does resin and carbon work, and what an equilibrium reaction is, and why those are important. And no doubt Chris is going to fact check me up the wazoo. But anyhow.
Go for it, Chris.
yeah.
Well, to me, your applied chemistry is theoretical. So I can follow a procedure, but I not really develop the procedure. Anyhow, so I'll get to that shortly. Now, this slacker was out there frolicking in the forest for days or something.
Yeah, almost a whole week.
So,
staking more claims.
Doing some other stuff.
Yeah, I had
there.
to get some firewood cut now that they dropped restrictions here. I was like, I'm going to jump on it before we get too close to snow season. So I wanted to get that done.
Is it because the chainsaws that they're
Oh, yeah. When they were under restriction, we couldn't be up there, you know. And now that they dropped those last Monday, for everything west of the divide here, is all free to go again. You can have a campfire or whatever you want to do.
Okay.
So got some wood cut, got ready, you know, try to get ahead of that before winter, and then get on these claims and try to get everything kind of staked out for what we want for next year.
So get all your research and sampling.
Yep. Sampling,
all that other
research.
stuff.
Yep. Marking corners.
Because you're up above the snow line, basically.
A lot of it is in an area that's going to have snow. Probably the first snow will be about the 20th of the month.
Well,
So we're coming, you know, we're running out of days.
would it be accessible with snowmobile?
Oh, yeah,
if you need
some
it?
of it will. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to go until we can't, but we'll, you know. And then it could get nice and we could have a whole month or month and a half of beautiful weather. You just don't know.
It's Montana.
Yeah, well, so you make every day count.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing.
Friday, it was kind of funny because Eve and I were coming back from the ranch, and as we came over the hill, we could see, what is that, Colorado?
Yeah, the fire up on Colorado Gulch. Yeah.
There was a
I
fire.
passed you right out here. I was going out and you were coming. You had the four-wheeler behind the truck.
Yeah. And so there was that fire up there, and we're like, smoke? That's not supposed to be there. But as we were coming down there at the fire station right there, there was somebody there.
They were all standing there watching.
No, there was just one guy.
By the time I got out there was a bunch of them there.
Yeah. But he said he was probably going to have to call out because he says it looks like somebody's burning a brush pile or something, but it doesn't matter.
Right.
Because whatever it is, it
Put it out.
ain't
Yep.
legal.
Nope.
And so apparently the procedure is, and from the desert we don't have these procedures, but if you see smoke like that, call it in to 911, and they have burn permits and things like that. So they'll be able to cross-reference it in real time and say, is there supposed to be a fire in that area? And if not, then they can dispatch someone.
Yep.
So the rule is, unless you know what's going on, just call it to 911 and they'll figure it out.
Yep.
So
Yep. Hits dispatch, and then the interagency fire, all the communication between everybody goes right through real fast.
yeah, the guy seemed more annoyed than anything else. Like, what
Well,
idiot is up there burning stuff right now? You
And
know?
that's far enough up in there that might have been a helicopter they had to call in or something. That was up in there a little ways.
I don't know. It was up in there a ways. I'm not sure what was going on or how it happened.
There was a bit of smoke
But it was-
coming out of there.
It was
Yeah.
a fair amount of smoke. That was no campfire.
I seen it when we went by.
That was at least a brush pile. You know,
When we got by the fire department, they were already opening doors and there was trucks,
Getting
there was
ready to
guys
go
there
out,
already.
all righty, David. So anyhow, so you've got plenty to keep you busy this fall.
We're gonna be busy at this point, right into as late as we can go.
That's good
Yeah,
because you're getting paid too, right?
right, yep. And
Yep.
they're expanding the sampling program and what we're doing, and it's gonna get busy.
Well, my other daughter shared a video on Facebook or something. I don't do Facebook anymore because
I don't do
Facebook,
it at all.
I disagree with their philosophy.
Yep. Yeah, we did, Chris. But luckily, when we had most of the lightning through here, we also got good rain,
Oh yeah,
and that helped kind of quiet it down.
there was a lot of lightning in that area.
Oh, yeah.
I think the week before,
through,
'cause
yeah, a week ago.
When I was coming back from the ranch that one day, I saw lightning just slamming down up there, but there was also a lot of rain pouring down, so I wasn't too worried. But yeah, we've been getting some. Hello,
Pushker.
is it Push E? Is there an I there?
Okay.
I see the K. No, just Pushker. Okay, my eyes aren't that great. Hello, Pushker. How are you? Where are you from? Pedro.
It could be, Chris. You know, it's hard to say. We have gotten fairly warm the last few days here again. So
Yeah, smoking.
Maybe
Are you
smoking.
here?
India.
India. I was wondering. That was an
Yeah.
unusual name.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for coming. If you have any questions, just ask them because that really helps the conversation go along. Anyone who has a question, somebody else wants to know the answer. And we have quite a few people who are quite knowledgeable. And so there's hardly any questions that we can't get a reasonable answer to because we have, let's say, so many people who are quite knowledgeable. And what we're doing right now is getting ready to start. I'm going to discuss how carbon and resin do what they do and the basic chemical processes. And that's quite interesting, Pushker. Yes, that would make sense. How old is that slag? Now, where you're from, that could be very old. Absolutely. So anyhow,
What do you refresh or move?
yeah, I guess. Anyhow, so here's
Get out of here too.
the purpose of the carbon and resin when you're using those in a leaching circuit.
There you go. Whoops.
Now,
Try that.
whenever you're leaching gold, you got ore and you've got solution, and you mix them together, and the solution winds up containing gold. But it also contains other stuff, typically silver, copper, iron, and who knows what else. It can get pretty complicated. I think I need to write a little bigger, huh? Although
Yeah.
on their screens it's
Are
probably
you
a
gonna
little
want some pizza later, or can I eat the whole thing?
big. You're not gonna be able to eat the whole thing. I'll have some pizza
Don't you
later.
count on that.
So you have this leach solution. I should probably do it with blue, huh? Oh yeah. There, it's blue. It looks like solution. So anyhow, this leach solution contains a number of dissolve minerals in it. One of the good things about cyanide is it's fairly selective. It tends to not dissolve everything under the sun. You certainly wouldn't want something that would dissolve silica or feldspar or anything like that. Luckily, nothing that'll do that is cheap and simple anyhow. So, in our case, we're using a thiosulfate-based leach, but you can also have a cyanide leach, which is, of course, the most common one. Thiosulfate is S2SO3, S2O3, I believe. And anyhow, cyanide is cyanide, like that. So, carbon and nitrogen. These will both dissolve gold. And so when you dissolve it, you wind up with all this stuff in solution. Now the question becomes, how do you get it out of solution? And when you have carbon, I'll just go carbon like this, or resin. What they will do is these gold complexes will stick to them. They don't react with them in a normal chemical reaction sort of way. It's more of a stick. Now, BR, you're right. Zinc shavings work real good on cyanide, not nearly so good on the thiosulfate. Okay? And there's a number of reasons for that, but it's not as good in the thiosulfate. I have some zinc dust, and that's one of the things I was planning on trying just for funsies. But when you use zinc to precipitate the gold, then what happens is you first have to filter it real well. Mm-hmm. Then you have to deoxygenate it, because if there's oxygen in there, then the cyanide will tend to try and redissolve the gold. Okay. Okay, so by deoxygenating it, you break that reaction. You stop that reaction. You throw in the zinc. It precipitates the gold. You filter it out again, and you can move the solution. Then you take that sludge and smelt it. It's not as efficient because the particles in filtration are difficult. You can get very fine particles that go through your filters. And it's more expensive. Carbon is overall less expensive and more efficient and works at lower concentrations. You can efficiently absorb the gold onto the carbon, adsorb, ADSORB, at very low concentrations. It's not nearly as good trying to precipitate it with zinc at real low concentrations. Okay? Resin does basically the same thing. Now, the basic way it works is you'll have a spot. If here's the surface of your carbon, and the details are a little ambiguous even to me, but you'll have a spot here that, and this is activated charcoal. It grabs a lot of things, but your gold cyanide, and yes, I know, Chris, that's not the proper chemical formula. It's like AU2CS. I don't know. But anyhow, your gold cyanide will stick to certain spots on the carbon. And that's called adsorption. Okay? Well, are you remelting the slag? If you are, Pushkar, that is not the most efficient way to go about it. But we'll get to you in a little bit. If you got a little patience here, I'd like to kind of finish this lesson about half an hour, and then we can get to you. If you don't have a lot of time, let me know. We'll take yours first. Okay? Resin is not carbon. Okay? They are two entirely different things. Resins are a kind of plastic. Okay? In your water softener, you have ion exchange resins. Now, resins, carbon is basically carbon. That's it. It does what carbon does. A resin is an engineered material. They make it many, many different ways. It's kind of like different alloys of steel and aluminum and zinc and stuff like that. So you can take this resin, and it'll usually be in a bead, fairly small beads, but they'll have these binding sites on them. And depending on how they make the resin, depends, first of all, on what will bind, positive, negative ions, what
Right.
size
So
ions.
it's an electrostatic.
Kind of
process,
like an
kind of-
electrostatic
kind of.
attraction sort of thing.
Okay.
And so the resins can be more selective, okay, than carbon is. Carbon, does what carbon does. Resins, this one will do this, and that one will do that, and that one will do the other. And in the case of the thiosulfate solutions, carbon is not the ideal thing to grab thiosulfate. Resins work better, but there's a lot of different resins. The more selective resins also tend to hold less gold per pound. The less selective resin will hold more gold, but they'll hold more other stuff too.
Right. You get your copper and your silver.
Now, Chris, again, our practical chemist here, is trying to work on various potential options, which we will test to try and get the gold. Yep. Carbon is complicated, but it's not very easy to engineer. I said it does what it does. Resin, you can engineer it to some extent. The resin will grab the thiosulfate gold complex better than than carbon in general.
Okay.
And if you have some of the, I think it was strong base cation exchange resin, might have been should have been cation. No, that's an anion. Anion exchange resin. Then you can get copper and a few other things too. So to get it back out, you use a flush with one set of chemicals to try and get the other crap out first. Then you do it to get the gold out. So once it's absorbed, then you have to do something else to get it back into solution. But whereas this initial solution may have had a very, very low concentration of gold, when you elute this or desorb this, you can get a much more concentrated solution, which is then much more suitable for things like precipitation or electrowinning, electroplating.
Yeah.
So it's the chemical makeup and the surface area. That's why it tends to come in small beads to improve the surface area. But it's the molecular structure and the very fine structure that determines what it will absorb and what it will not adsorb. Okay. Now, you're saying, well, you put it on, you take it off. How does that happen? This is where we get into something called equilibrium reactions. And again, Chris, forgive me for getting details wrong in a few things, but let's suppose that you take calcium hydroxide plus water yields calcium ions plus, let's see, that would be, you're going to get 2 hydroxide ions in solution. The water allows these 2 to break up. Now the thing is, it doesn't just go that way. It also goes back this way. There's a certain concentration that will dissolve. Okay? let us say, for the sake of argument, 10 grams per gallon. Okay, now I have no idea if that's true. That's saturation, and that's not a true number. That's all that will dissolve. Okay? If you throw more in, it's not like nothing is happening there. But what's happening is, on the surface of the particle, this reaction where the particle is going into solution is at the same speed as the reverse reaction. Okay? So you don't see anything happening. But what is happening is calcium hydroxide is coming out of solution and going into solution at the same time. If you add more water, then that isn't being pushed as much. If you dry it out, then the equilibrium goes the other way. In most chemistry, it's equilibrium reactions. You have very few reactions that are 100% one way. Okay. Most of them, there's a balance that occurs. When you mix calcium hydroxide, and it'll only take it to about a pH of, 11.5. There's a reason for that. Because at saturation, there's only so many hydroxide radicals floating around. Sodium hydroxide, much more soluble. This arrow is much bigger for sodium hydroxide. Therefore, you get a lot more hydroxide in the solution. Okay. Now, one way you might look at this, let's say you have a house. Okay. And the only way you can heat or cool your house is by changing the outside temperature. Okay. So if you want 70 degrees here, that's your ideal temperature. And what you've actually got is 60 degrees. What would you want to do to the outside temperature?
Increase it.
Exactly. You want to have it more than 70. Okay, so say 80 degrees. So that will go this way. Okay. Now, if you've got a 70-degree house and the outside temperature is 50 degrees, it's going to go this way. It's an equilibrium reaction. Okay. Yep. And so that's basically what if you want it to do more one thing, then you have to force the other side.
Enhance it. Yeah.
Exactly. So when you have these, that is correct, BR. It does not. So when you have a resin bead and you have gold gold thiosulfate ion that wants to stick to it under the leaching solution, then to get it off of there, you have to change the conditions. You may heat it, raise the temperature. You may change the chemistry. The theoretical chemists and the practical chemists figure out what you do to the conditions to cause this reaction to go the other way. And that's called stripping. In the case of carbon, okay, what we used to do was 190 degrees, 2%.
Describe that.
CN,
Yep.
and pH of 14.
Yeah.
This was 0.01% CN, ambient temperature, and a pH of 11. Okay? So by changing these conditions, the equilibrium changes from going into the carbon to coming out of the carbon.
Right.
And that's what we're going to do with the resin too. What these exact conditions are, don't know yet, but they have some information in the literature. Yeah, pretty much,
Chris.
Yeah. That is some really, really dangerous stuff. This right here. The stuff that we should be doing here should be not nearly so extreme.
Right.
Okay. But what exactly we're going to do to this resin has yet to be determined. But that's why we're doing it and how it works. Under the leach solution conditions, the gold goes into the resin. Then you separate the resin from those conditions, put it into other conditions, dissolve the gold back off of the resin, and then electroplate it or precipitate it. This is exactly what happens in a water softener. You have resin, and this is designed so that your calcium ions will stick to it.
And iron. Yeah.
And a few other things, depends on what it is. And then when you add salt, you have that concentrated brine. That's why you put salt in them.
Yeah.
It drives that calcium off of it. And then both of these go to the sewer. And you've recharged your resin to use it again. So that's essentially what we're trying to do in this system.
Bear,
Yo.
I have eaten my 2 pieces of pizza and I am still hungry. May I have a third piece?
Do whatever you want, little one.
Eat it all.
So,
Well, since he challenged me by saying I couldn't eat the whole thing, you do realize this is not a bright idea.
you should be realizing it's not a bright idea.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But it tastes good.
So anyhow, we're getting the gold into solution from the ore just fine.
Yep.
That seems to be working well. The rolling bottle tests were quite good. It did seem that by reducing the pH, the factory pH was 11 to 11.5 factory recommendation. This is what the manufacturer said we should use. This created a lot of secondary reactions to put a lot of other stuff into solution and actually kind of slowed things down. We found for practical purpose that a pH of 10 to 10.5 speeded up the dissolution and reduced those undesirable side reactions. We're dissolving other stuff.
Right.
Okay. This was done by testing, not by theory. I don't know the theory to do this. Besides, the ore itself is extremely complicated. There's probably at least 50 different minerals
In the ore.
in the ore.
Yeah.
Some of them relatively inert, like silica. The quartz isn't going to do anything, probably. But the dolomite limestone, oh, that can be quite reactive in a number of different ways.
It can change your pH right there.
Yeah, and then you've got all these other things in there too,
Yep.
other metals and metal oxides. It is not desirable because it's going to tend to be acid. It would be best to oxidize those sulfides first. You're going to get better recoveries. You could probably get recoveries from a sulfide ore reasonable, and 2 conditions were met. Number 1, if your sulfide was not encapsulated in the gold. By that I mean, here's your little pyrite cubes, and then the gold is either on the outside or separate. Now, In this case, you're going to have more reagent consumption because that sulfide is going to react with the hydroxide and it's going to be tending to neutralize it. But as long as you can keep your pH in the same situation, you're probably going to be able to dissolve your gold reasonably well. However, in many cases, when you have sulfides, the gold is inside the sulfides. It's actually in them.
Right.
Which means until you crush it fine enough to expose it,
Oxidize it.
or oxidize it enough to make it porous where the solution can get through it to that, you're not even going to get the solution to the gold.
Right, you're not getting contact.
And so that's why it could go either way on this. It's undesirable either way, but one is undesirable, the other is virtually impossible. And so that's where you wind up oxidizing the sulfide ores. Okay?
Burning them off.
I presume that answered your question, BR. Same thing with cyanide. You can use cyanide with sulfide ores. Your reagent consumption will go up.
You still got the problem.
And you can still got the same exposure problem. So, let's say, sulfide ores suck unless you simply concentrate the sulfides and send them to a smelter. In many cases, that's your best option because the effective treatments for sulfide ores are very energy intensive. And if you've got a smelter that's already doing these very energy intensive things, especially if it's like a copper ore, if it's big enough and on the outside of the cubes, you could. If it's fine gold, if it's inside the cubes, you're not going to see it. There are times when it's actually almost alloyed with the sulfides. It's almost in solid solution. It's in atomic particles. And you will not be able to see that at all.
You're correct, BR. Usually that you have to roast them, burn them off in order to pull the gold out or be able to even identify the gold.
Absolutely. But if you have like a copper ore, copper sulfide, then if you concentrate the sulfides, you can ship those and get paid for the copper and paid for the gold.
And silver or whatever else might be in there.
Depending upon who you're shipping it to and what the exact circumstances are, you can get credits for a variety of things. And you save money by not doing real complicated metallurgy. You're not smelting, you're not oxidizing, you're not doing fancy hydrometallurgy. You're crushing, you're concentrating, you're shipping. And so your costs are much lower that way than if you're trying to take it to a refined product. If you have sulfides, you should very carefully consider that option because sulfides make life unpleasant. They do complicate things and make them expensive. Now, this is a similar thing to our visitor from India, forget the name, Pushkar. And so Pushkar, this is actually fairly good similarity to what you got. You're using old copper slag. This is where it's been smelted and now the old copper slags would often have somewhere up to 30 to 50% copper still in them.
Well, gold. They can have gold, a lot of gold in them.
They can have a lot of gold. They still have a lot of copper in them. And what I would suggest you try first, Pushkar, is crush the slag fairly fine, and then try and do a gravity separation first. By that I mean the slag is essentially glass. It's usually a pretty tough glass. There's a lot of iron in it. But you crush it, and then you use like a sluicing, jigging, panning, anything like that to concentrate the metals that are still in the slag. And your gold is going to tend to be alloyed with the copper or any other metals in there. and test, crush it. I would just start out panning it, okay, because it's real cheap. And it's actually a fairly efficient gravity separation technique, especially if you pan it a couple of times. You pan it and then pan your tailings and then pan the tailings again. Take those concentrates and the tailings after you pan them and have them both assayed, have them both analyzed at a laboratory, and that'll tell you where your various metals are going. If the vast majority of the metals are in the heavies, then you've got a real easy way to concentrate it. And then you're trying to get the gold out of those heavies. That's a lot easier to do than out of the slag. The slag itself, if you melt it, it takes an enormous amount of energy.
Yep.
It takes a lot of heat. There's a reason it's still in the slag. It's because the slag was viscous enough and the particles are small enough they didn't want to settle anyhow. So it didn't work the first time. It's not probably going to work very well the second time. If you tried leaching the slag in its original circumstance, as you find it, then all the stuff's going to be surrounded by glass and very little of it is actually going to dissolve. If you crush it finely, you may be able to leach it well, but if you can gravity concentrate it or flotation concentrate it or something like that easily, that will probably be a better way to go. If you wind up with a concentrate that's like, 80% copper and 5% silver and 1% gold or something like that, hey, that's some pretty saleable stuff.
Yep.
But that's what I would do initially to test it. Now, be careful when you're crushing that slag. The dust is going to be very harmful. It's going to be very sharp particles. They're going to be bad on your lungs. So be very careful to wear some kind of respiratory protection when you're crushing that slag, whether you're using mechanical means or just smashing it with a hammer. Depending upon your circumstances, whether you've got a lot of money and some equipment and this, that, the other, or whether you're very, very poorly equipped, depends on what you do. I have crushers and stuff, so I don't hand crush anything anymore. But there was a time when I did, and it will work. It's just time consuming. But however you're crushing that slag to a very fine material, you want to wear some protection. And a simple chain mill or hammer mill or something like that is fine for testing. Okay. The equipment I use is designed for small production scale testing. My impact mill will do 100 pounds an hour. And if you watch my video this week, you'll see I'm not doing a whole lot of babysitting of that mill.
No,
I'm getting
letting it run and go.
I'm getting a lot of other stuff done in the meantime. So that's how I would go about testing that. Now that would apply to anyone else here. If it's old slag, because back in the 1800s, the processes they had were not very efficient. And so you can have pretty high losses into the slag. When you have modern processes like the slag piles out here, was that Anaconda that was there?
No, this was East Helena Smelter.
Yeah. What was the company? Do you remember?
You had to ask that, didn't you?
Yeah. Anyhow, the East Helena Smelter, there's a pile of millions of tons of slag.
Well, Anaconda's got a huge one over there too.
Yeah.
Same difference.
And it's probably not very rich because the modern smelters don't lose near as much.
There was a company on that pile over at Anaconda that they were screening it and selling it for sandblasting abrasives because it's so hard.
Yeah, it's very tough.
But they were screening it for size particles for,
probably crushing it sometime.
They may have been crushing, but they were screening and bagging. I know that.
They did the same thing in southern Arizona.
Yeah.
I got some really good backhaul rates for hauling dust control chemicals to the mine because the front haul was slag to the shipyards in San Diego.
Oh,
And I was getting magnesium chloride from the salt facility in San Diego. Hello, Ethan. How's it going? But anyhow, Pushkar, that would be where I would start. Did that help you? Do you have any more questions on that? If you do, now is an excellent time to ask, or come back next week. It's usually Monday, but next week Eva may be in the hospital, so it may not be on Monday. But this is a great time to ask questions because you can get a specific answer to your question. And if I'm screwing up, somebody else, most likely named Chris Georgie, will pick it up and correct
we got a
me.
few other good miners.
We got some
here
good.
too. So
When it comes to placer,
Yeah,
you've got
well,
people that are.
yeah, I
covering
mean, we
your
got
butt,
some
too.
guys here that can answer those questions probably. If not, we'll have an answer. We'll find one.
Yep. But anyhow, I hope that that's helpful to you. But that's where I would start, because if it's an old slag, then yes, they could have lost a lot into the slag,
Definitely.
and those can be very, very rich ore.
Yeah, you don't need a lot of tons to make some money if you can get it figured out.
Yeah, especially I say if you can just crush it in gravity, concentrate it, and have a good saleable product, that's good. Anyhow, that's basically what we're trying to do in terms of why we're looking at resin and not carbon. And I'm going to try some zinc precipitation, but it's, as a matter of fact, I told the boss I'm paying for the zinc out of my pocket because it's just a lark. I don't think it's going to work, so I don't think you should be paying for me playing around, but I want to find out. I want to try it. And somebody suggested sodium metabisulfite. Chris, are you still on? He's got some fires around him, so he's kind of in and out. But Chris, would sodium metabisulfite work? I know that the guys at Clean Mining did have some kind of precipitant for their thiosulfate leaching system. I'm not sure what it was, but in their what they called artisanal scale system, they were clearly precipitating the gold out of solution. Now, as long as we didn't poison the solution, I could lose the Eco Goldex that's still in solution to get the gold out of it, and it wouldn't be terribly costly compared to the amount of gold I would recover.
Right.
Right now, I'm starting out at about 3 kilos per ton of solution, and I'm running about, I think it's 3 pounds per kilo. $3 per kilo. So we're looking at $10 per ton of solution, and each ton of solution is probably going to be gathering roughly half an ounce of gold. So that's $900.
Yep.
So $10 in chemicals for $900 in gold. Even if we lose it all,
Yeah, you're right.
it's an acceptable cost.
Yep.
BR, I use what's known as a pH meter. Is there like a plastic box somewhere over there? I have a pH meter here. Is it down there? Yeah, right here. Yep, this is a pH meter.
Okay.
This is the second pH meter I got, so I'd never be someplace I needed one and not had one. And it's basically just a little meter. This is your probe right here. You turn it on. Once you've calibrated it, you just put this probe into the solution and it'll give you a digital readout. Then you just rinse the probe, turn it off, and set it aside. This particular one comes with 3 different solutions of known pH. And this stuff here is basically to rinse the probe. If it gets contaminated where it doesn't want to work, then you can do it. And I believe this is $80-some for the whole kit. And it runs on 2 Penlight batteries. It's not rechargeable internally. You don't plug it in. But that's it. And that is really convenient. It gives you a reading to the 100th of a pH point. It takes about typically 30 seconds to take the reading. Hey, gold miner, how's it going?
Hey, gold miner.
So I would definitely, if you're going to be doing a lot of it, instead of pH paper, the pH meter is a vast improvement. I would definitely go with that. In terms of how do I check the Eco Goldex concentration, that's the titration I did a video on about a week ago. And to get a rough idea of the actual gold in solution, Chris is working on a test for that. But for getting precise numbers, we take it to a local laboratory here. They use something called ICP, induction coupled plasma. It's a standard analytical technique. And they give me answers to, I think it's 1/10 of a parts per million, you know. But so those are the three big things in the solution. The pH, now let's see if I can do this right. The pH, the Eco Goldex, and the gold. So you got three different things that are really important in the solution. If you had other undesirable chemicals that were causing problems, like too much copper or something like that, you might need to test those too. But preliminarily, that's all we really need to worry about. And two of them I can do a test out there in a minute or two, as long as I have clean solution. The tailings pad itself seems to be working well. We're getting good percolation through, adequate percolation. It's doing good for filtration. The solution coming out is plenty clear enough that I can titrate it. And another nice thing about resin is that it's not terribly sensitive to dirt. As a matter of fact, it's essentially insensitive to dirt in the slurry. You can actually mix it in the slurry itself as it's dissolving. And that's a perfectly usable way of doing it. I'm going to do initially something called packed column adsorption. Okay. Now there's three different ways of using the resin. Number one is, and that just sounds bad, but that stands for resin in pulp. And you have your tank. It's got an agitator. You've got your slurry, and you add ore, resin, and solution at the same time. The ore has to be ground significantly finer than your resin beads, which normally isn't a problem, right? So that when you're done leaching it, screen out. This goes out, you just have a screen, and the slurry goes through, and the resin comes off here. Now, it's very simple, and one good thing is, and remember the equilibrium reaction? As the gold is going into solution, it's being taken out of solution by the resin, so it increases the speed that it dissolves. The less gold that's in solution, the faster it will dissolve. Just like the less salt there is in water, the faster the salt will dissolve. Sure. Same thing. Now, then there's a fluidized bed column. Okay, in this case, if you take your slurry, slurry, and this is the solution goes here, and the solids go here. You have some kind of separation take here, filtration, settling, whatever. Okay, so the solution's coming here. Then you have a column. There's an overflow there. The resin is in here. And you introduce the solution in the bottom, and the resin beads float around. They're separated from each other. And if you get this volume of liquid right and the density of those right, you don't even need a screen on top. Although you usually have a screen here just for safety. Yeah. It's interesting to watch when you're using like a fiberglass or HDPE. HDPE? I don't know, but one of those kind of clear tanks.
Yeah.
You can actually see the bed go. And then it creates a fairly stable surface
on top.
because the space between them, once you inflate it to a certain amount, then the solution can get through there without exerting any more pressure, and it creates a fairly flat surface. It's really quite interesting. Now, the advantage to fluidized bed is that it is very good at even adsorption. Okay, everything gets to the resin fairly easily, so you don't have any dead spots. You know, resin where the stuff's just bypassing it. The problem is, due to equilibrium, you're going to need a series of these. Okay, because this is only going to absorb so much before your equilibrium slows down the absorption.
Meet it.
So this one, this would be your primary, secondary, tertiary, like that. And as this gets loaded, then you'll take this column or the resin out of the column, whichever you do, and strip it, and then you move the resin upstream. So the resin from this column goes to here, and the resin from this column goes to here. In the case of the mine I used to work at, we had these columns on pallets. And
So
we
you
had a
could
big
just
rack, and we literally just
take it out of
forklift it over to the stripping thing and, move them.
Right.
And in 30 minutes, they're back running. The pumps are back on. Have hoses and quick connects. Okay. Now, the negative to this is that it takes more resin. Now there's something called packed bed. Okay. And in this case, you take like a pipe and you literally fill it with resin. Okay. And you have screens at each end, but the resin beads can't move around. So as the stuff flows through, these beads here get the most concentrated solution. These get less concentrated
as you go.
Less concentrated like that. And then you usually have, again, several of them. Now the advantage of this is that you'll notice you're not loading everything equally. So a small amount of resin gets the highest loading, whereas this, a large amount of resin gets the highest loading. This is more efficient in terms of
be more concentrated than
actually. Yeah, your resin loading can be higher. Okay, this is higher loading.
So do you do the same thing here then, Keith? You could take this one out of the circuit,
exactly,
and rotate your circuit.
Yeah, you can also just have flexible hoses and replumb it if you wanted to, or you can physically move things, whichever it is that is best in the particular layout you want. But you just say it. You can see how you could easily do it with just hoses too. You can have these like racked on a wall,
sure,
and just 1, 2, 3, 4 like this, and you just we're taking one out of circuit. Yep. This hose stays there, and we take this hose from here, put it here, and then take
that circuit out.
Let's see, the hose that was normally hooked up here would still be here, although you'd probably have at least 3 or 4. And then once this is stripped, then you would take this and send it back up to there. So you can do it either way. Whatever it is that is easiest to understand and to actually physically accomplish
Quick.
will work. Yeah, you don't want to be,
Efficiency, yeah.
you don't want to be down for too much time, but depending upon how much solution you have and how big your system is, it may not be important. And so these are the three basic ways you use, and carbon can be done in the same thing. The big difference is carbon in pulp, the carbon tends to get ground up a little bit. So you lose finely ground carbon
That could have gold.
that has, no, that
No, it
does have gold
Yeah.
going out in the slurry. So that's the negative to carbon in pulp, is it just, the carbon itself grinds up. The resin is tougher. So I'm thinking for our system, we're probably going to go with packed bed columns, just pipe.
Yep.
And if we run a fairly slow solution, because I mean, all I'm doing right now is generating between 100 and 200 pounds of solution per day. So I can run that through this column pretty slow.
Well, you could get down to a pretty small
Yeah.
column.
Like a 2-inch
Yeah,
pipe.
right. Column would be pretty tight.
Exactly. 2-inch pipe, you know, and, you know, like 18-inch pieces of pipe, 2 inches in diameter, 4 of them, and run a flow rate of, gosh, what we're looking at, you know, 1 gallon every 5 minutes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Get that
Like a
low.
liter a minute would be able to keep up with what I'm doing right now.
Sure.
And so you don't want to run this any faster than you have to, because
No,
the longer
'cause you
the
want
contact time,
Absorption.
the more time it has to absorb. Exactly. So I'm thinking 2-inch diameter pipe, whatever length is right to get the number of, you know, the amount of resin that I need
Right.
to do what I want. And my next step up will probably be about 300 to 500 pounds a day. So I probably want to scale this to where I can handle that, because and it's really not that hard. I mean, how much does it cost to make a piece of pipe?
The fittings will cost you more than the pipe.
Yeah.
You know, making the ends so you can
Exactly.
make it all work.
You know, just make it so that if there's anything that comes apart, it drains back into the pond, you know, and you don't lose any resin, and you can just dry fit them. You wouldn't even need to glue them. But
They go on quick couplers, though. You could have it so you could.
then they
change-
become really expensive.
Well, they
yes.
do, but you're only going to buy them basically once, and you're going to get quite a few years of use out of that.
Initially, you could even just use hoses and screw clamps.
Oh, you could. Yeah, you could.
know.
Yeah.
So you just have an insert
Yep.
adapter at the end with
Yep.
with a reducing bushing and just a hose with a screw clamp with an impact driver.
Yep.
Pretty easy. But that's basically what I'm looking
Fairly
at.
simple.
Yeah, it's very simple. And then from here, you know, you again take this out of circuit. And I'm thinking of just having them in a rack. That way I can actually physically take it out of circuit, move the others up, and take it to the stripping area. And that's where the electrowinning cell will be. And then the solution will flow through there, and we'll electroplate it out of solution. Another thing in the electrowinning, hey, KDOCAC, what they are processing, well, this is to extract the gold out of solution after being dissolved by the Eco Goldex. And these are various ways you can use resin to adsorb the gold out of solution. That's the purpose here, to show the various ways and the advantages of each different way. But that's why I think the packed bed columns will work fine for what I'm going to be doing for the foreseeable
I
future.
can see that.
The other thing is your stripping solution by definition is not going to be the same as your leaching solution.
Right.
The smaller the volume you have to deal with, the simpler
Right.
and the more concentrated.
Economic, Economics.
you know. So it makes it simple. Another potential advantage to this is if you have these sealed in a manner that's fairly tamper-proof, then when you could be leaching them at a mill or a mine out in the field, and then once it's loaded, you
Move it.
cap it and haul it to the stripping facility, which is in a much more secure location. And that can have a number of advantages, but the most important one is just security. If there is no gold at your mine or your mill out in the middle of nowhere, then there's no reason to
Right.
rob you,
Right. There's no reason to poke around.
you know? In that case, you may have to use a leaching system to do it, and you're probably going to have to crush it pretty fine, Pushkar, because in order to get the solution to contact the particles that contain the gold and the platinum, slag is impenetrable, and you're going to need to crush it fine to do that, and you're going to have to turn it into a powder in all likelihood in order to dissolve the gold and the platinum from the slag itself. Again, I'm not that familiar with slag, but that's,
Well,
if your gold is still left in the slag after you did the first test we talked about, crushing it and then doing a gravity separation, then you may have to do leaching, in which case this is really important to you. Depending upon the regulations where you are at, cyanide may be perfectly doable. You have to use caution. There are certain rules in handling it, but gasoline will kill you pretty quick too. So it can be done. You just have to follow the rules, make sure you have the proper procedures and equipment. And yeah, BR, how much does it take to melt a ton of slag?
the amount of energy.
The energy is enormous,
Yeah.
and the it would work, but if it costs you $500 a ton and leaching can be done for $20 a ton, that would be a lot more efficient. Where I used to work open pit heap leaching, the entire leaching cost was $5 a ton total. Okay. So I'd be willing to bet you cannot smelt a ton of slag for anywhere near $5.
A sample, and that makes sense.
Yeah. It would, if a guy knows what he's doing, that would be just fine. If a person isn't experienced, you're probably best to leave it to an expert,
Yeah.
and just have them do a fire assay. But to say, if you don't know what you're doing, you could easily get false results. And so that's why I suggested Pushkar first. Say crush it, do a gravity separation, and see where the gold and stuff is at that point. If it's in the slag, you're probably going to have to leach. If it's in the gravity concentrates, then life is going to be a lot easier. But in terms of leaching solutions, there are two basic ones now on the market. The cyanide has been used for a long, long time. It's inexpensive. It's fairly simple and straightforward, but it is toxic, and in some areas it's not even legal anymore. And so they're going more to the thiosulfate leaching because it's much less toxic. You know, nothing's non-toxic. Eat enough salt, it'll kill you. But as a matter of fact, I think it's 1 tablespoon will kill a baby. but toxicity is a level, a function of concentration. And the thiosulfate things are inherently less toxic than the cyanide, which makes for certain advantages. Like, for example, I'm doing, rolling bottle tests here and using my kitchen counter. I would be very hesitant to do that if I was using cyanide.
Yeah, that would.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would really not want to prepare my cyanide solution anywhere near where you might have food, because that powdered cyanide, or actually you should go granular. In the big
Even the
volumes, they use briquettes because there's almost no dust with the briquettes. Granular is as fine as you ever want it, unless it's really a weird application because of dust. You don't want that dust. That will get you good.
Yeah.
So anyhow, 7:13 now. How's your research going, little one?
It's not.
It's not.
I am talking to somebody. I will start researching in a minute.
Okay, it's 7:13 already.
There was a serious keto emergency.
Okay.
I had to respond to the keto emergency.
Okay. Yeah, Pushker, if you can check back with us as you do your experiments and stuff, we would not only find it very interesting, but could also perhaps assist you as you continue researching this. But that's why I said the first test, crush it, gravity separation, see where the gold is.
Yep.
That's going to tell you a lot fairly cheaply. Make sure you weigh your original sample before you gravity separate it, and weigh the two fractions after you've separated and dried. Make sure it's all dry weights. Water can add a lot. And then you can crunch numbers and tell what's actually going on. If you don't weigh it, you're kind of guessing. So I think I've answered all the questions I've had in my head at this point. Does anyone have any other questions or comments they'd like us to address at this point? Man, you haven't got any questions tonight. There's no plaster
okay.
tonight.
That's all right.
Yeah, definitely. You want to have a good idea. And hard rock inherently has a lot more potential complications than placer. I forget your name. I think is it John? That's his call sign.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly.
But anyhow, definitely the more you know before you try. You'd like to do a little research before you tried flying an airplane. That would be a good idea. John, I was right.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Good memory.
No, not a good memory. That was more luck. I've got a terrible memory.
I got a good memory. It's just real short.
Yeah. But anyhow, so the problems that tend to bite people in the ass when it comes to hard rock. First of all, sampling. When you're looking at a hard rock potential ore body, you have to get accurate sampling. Okay? And if you're sampling a 3-inch wide vein, make sure you know it's a 3-inch wide vein. You don't mine 3-inch wide veins, you need more room than that. So your mining cost has to include the waste you need to move to get that ore. And just because it's got gold in the rock doesn't mean you're going to get, that it's going to be profitable. It all depends on what the cost is to get it out of the rock. And that can get pretty complicated, as you see. Does resin cost more than cyanide? It's kind of a different thing. Like, does gasoline cost more than tires? They're different things. They do different things. The cyanide it dissolves the gold, and the resin captures the gold. The resin is also reusable. The cyanide is consumed. Okay? As it complexes with things, it's no longer available to react with other things. So it's a consumable, whereas the resin is reusable to a great extent. It's not forever, and it will lose some efficiency over time. Again, everything is depending on your particular operation, how well it regenerates and things like that. But as a general rule, you're looking at getting dozens to hundreds of cycles out of your resin. So it's more like a capital expense. Hey, Busted, how's it going? Haven't seen you in a bit. Oh, life's getting fun over there, it looks like. I hope you're doing okay.
Yeah.
That's some weird
we
stuff.
feel for you.
Yep. What was that somebody said today? Eva was talking to somebody on the internet or whatever. She's in Montana. There, basically, you're all dying of COVID up there and this and that and the other. And it's like,
yeah, they said we were in a plague zone.
A plague zone.
Really?
Have you noticed?
No.
That seems to have.
No.
Did you say you knew a couple people that died from the vaccine?
I two connections that I know of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know anyone that's died apparently from COVID?
No.
Neither do I. I don't know either. None that have died from.
Right.
If anybody was going to, it would have been your brother.
Yeah,
or
because
Gonzo.
both of them had health issues. My brother's overweight. But anyway, I'm glad you're busy there, Busted. If I'm confined, I get very, very hinky. It is nice that I can probably go down to Spring Meadow in the middle of winter and go fishing if I want.
Yeah.
It seems like that southwest end stays pretty ice-free. I think that's where the groundwater's coming in.
Water's coming in from 10 Mile.
Yeah.
It could be.
That's my guess, because when I walked around there, there are people out ice fishing.
All that up 10 Mile here, that's all hot springs.
Yeah.
So that's hot water coming.
Yeah. Because when I was, like just off the dock there, the ice was this thick.
Yeah.
There were people out there ice fishing, no problem. Then as I walked around the lake, it was open water down there at the other end. Long-term effects of what you're prospecting, that would be great. Yeah, I am not surprised. I think that the people that like to do prospecting in general tend to be kind of characters and free spirits.
Mostly.
There's not a whole lot of Mr. Conventionals in our little crowd here, but yeah, I can understand that definitely, Busted. Yeah, John, you might want to consider this Eco Gold X too, because it might do a good job of dissolving the gold without dissolving a lot of other stuff, and allow you to just kind of batch process the computer chips. We're going to find out, Gold Miner. Chris is got what he needs to test that. I haven't. There was one time about a year and a quarter ago where I got some kind of an upper respiratory thing that I thought might be COVID, but it was only, it was unpleasant for a couple of days, but it didn't even stop me from working. I just made sure that at the time we were putting in gas lines in the house, retrofitting in some gas lines and stuff, and I just made sure I stayed away from the other guys and used my tools. You know how I am good at digging and stuff. Well, my shovel, my pick, and everything. And we just made sure that I used my tools and I wasn't near them. And I hear they're doing using a lot of that in India, so we should start getting some good numbers out of there. And what is it? Israel, of course, has the highest vaccination rate around. So we should have a pretty good idea of how well the vaccination works or doesn't work from there.
So far, it's not looking good.
Well, it certainly doesn't seem to be stopping it. It may or may not be making it less dangerous, and it may or may not be making it less deadly. It can also have a dual effect potentially of, well, you don't get as sick unless you die.
Yeah.
So you'll have fewer in the middle. That's also a possibility. Again, we'll see what comes up. But yeah, if the government would just handle it rationally, I'd be a lot more comfortable. And they don't seem to be, not by my evaluation. But anyhow, so yeah, I'm probably going to get a little bit hinky next week. For all you late guys that showed up, Eva's surgery is this Friday, so all your prayers would be appreciated. And I'll try and get something out there to let you know how she did. As long as even if I don't take my, if all you see on the video is just text, it means I forgot my camcorder. And so as long as I got my computer, I can just put blank text on a black background. I could probably do a nice background if I wanted, but I don't care. And at least let you guys know what's going on, okay? Yes, thiosulfate is also a consumable, as there are things like your pH adjusters and stuff. Thank you, Busted. Busted wishes you well too, little one.
Thank you.
And yes, all your chemicals tend to be consumables.
I'm still waiting for those people in Australia to send us our winning lottery numbers. Y'all are in the future. Would be nice if you help an old lady out here.
Yeah. Did you guys hear that? But anyhow, so all your chemicals tend to be consumables. You wouldn't be adding a pH adjuster if the natural pH of the ore was where you needed it. Your solutions that dissolve things, the Eco Goldex, the cyanide, those are consumables. They not only are consumed by the gold, but by many other reactions, dissolving other things. And I think you're correct, Argonaut. I think the thiosulfate itself gets broken down to a bit by oxygen. There's another things that can eat it up. So your chemicals will be consumables. If your ore is relatively consistent, you can predict what that consumable cost is. Things like resin is a capital expenditure, but you have to process it, and those processing costs can be quantified fairly quickly and with reasonable precision. If you need to worry about, getting it down to 1 decimal point, well, you don't have enough, margin to be mining that ore body. Hey, Mr. Fang, how's it going?
Hello, Mr. Fang.
Yeah, I haven't seen you. Our lottery numbers. See, Eva's of the opinion, since you guys
Our day ahead.
are today, yesterday, you should just, as soon as you get the lottery numbers, email them to Eva, and then she can put them in, and everything will be fine.
Well, we all know y'all are in the future. It's a time zone thing.
Yeah. But anyhow, so that's what she's talking about, Busted. It's a joke. Anyhow.
I will tell you the origin of that joke during the tinfoil hat report.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Fang. Most of the stuff has been on leaching now. Oh, happy birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Yeah. So,
Happy birthday to you.
Happy
You live
birthday.
in a zoo.
So anyhow, yeah, I don't think I've seen you for about a month or two, something like that. So Mr. Fang, I've been working on leaching the Montana bee stuff, and Jim here has been working primarily on his copper project out there. And getting things lined up, doing geology and surveying, staking a few more claims, all that stuff. Take care, William.
Thanks for being here, William.
Yeah, Mr. Fang. We ran into some people that work in Tucson a little while ago. They weren't sure whether they were going to have a job when they go back, because they weren't going to do the the vaccine.
And now they're talking about making vendors at events get vaccinated.
Yeah, the other possibility, John, is you could dissolve the gold and silver without dissolving the copper if you can get the right lixiviant. So that's what I was saying. It all depends on what happens. It would also be probably cheaper than hydrochloric acid and hydrogen peroxide. If you were etching the copper to recover the copper from solution, then yes. Dissolving, basically leaching is a kind of dissolving. And in the case of the stuff you're leaching from circuit board and stuff, you might be able to electroplate the copper quite efficiently. Busted says 2, 4, 5, 12, 31, and 42, little one.
Okay, well, write that down there.
Okay. That's going to be hilarious if
I
it
will
works.
send you some if we win.
2, 4, 5. 12, 31. And he has a second set too. 1, 3, 7, 15. 1, 3, 7, 15.
2341.
23, 41. We're going to try that and see what happens. What the hell?
You watch if we win.
If we win, we'll send you something in American dollars. Because according to Rick Jobling, it's a pain to get money back and forth. He finally just had to pay me for those plans in like Aussie bucks. And even then, he had to put some kind of stuff in the envelope in case they opened it up. Said, what is this? What's this money for? Is this drugs or whatever, So anyhow.
Yeah, Australian money is plastic, people. That's just kind of weird.
So yeah, leaching is basically dissolving, but ideally, your ideal leaching solution would dissolve only those things you wanted to dissolve, leave everything you didn't want to dissolve.
Right.
Oh, he's got another set. Okay, that's the last set, busted. I'm running out of paper here. 6, 15, 16.
19. 24, 31.
24, 31. Oh, this would be hilarious to get back to you on that one. Well, John, gold is a form of real money. Absolutely. Everything else is fiat. Yeah. All this other stuff. Okay, busted. I ran out of paper. Nice try, though. I appreciate it. No, that'd be funny. See, what happens if that works? Oh, my God. Thank you, Argonaut. Yeah, statistically, that's true, but it's not as much fun, Argonaut. 7, 20, what? 27, 28,
40, 43.
40, and 43. Okay. Anyhow, so that would be the ideal leaching solution. That's why things like thiosulfate and cyanide are used. Ideally, it should be very cheap, stable, versatile, selective, and easy to recover from. Those are a lot of different criteria and you're trying to maximize there. That's why there's only a few chemicals that come into that. Things like aqua regia. Yeah, it'll dissolve the gold, but it'll dissolve a lot of the rock too. The costs are very much. Oh my goodness. I think I see a tinfoil hat. So it looks like the tinfoil hat goddess has deigned to visit with us.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Mr. Fang. You've been doing a lot of projects, huh? Wow, major rain in Tucson. That's unusual.
Not this time of year.
Of course, you do realize, public service announcement, Arizona absolutely sucks rocks, okay? Montana rules. Montana for the win. Of course, there are 10,000 things we can't talk about this week. However, in mining news, apparently there's been a coup in Guinea. Somehow this escaped my attention. I don't know. Maybe it's because we're living through 50 Shades of Jimmy Carter right now.
That was her odd rust mine was, isn't it? Guinea?
Yeah, it was. Howdy, David. Yeah. Since we're living through 50 Shades of Jimmy Carter at the moment, I kind of missed the fact that there was a coup in Guinea. Guinea junta, the junta I'm assuming is the group of people who committed said coup, plans unity government, reassuring mining firms. On national television. Yeah, Mr. Fang, that's exactly what we aren't going to talk about. We're going to continue to refer to that as the 50 Shades of Jimmy Carter because, you know, hostages and all that. Apparently, there was a coup in Guinea. A military junta that seized power in Guinea said it plans to establish a unity government pending a transition to civilian rule, urged mining companies to keep operating and reassured them their existing agreements with the state will be honored. A government of national unity will be set up to lead the transition, coup leader Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya said in an address to members of the toppled administration on Monday. The curfew in mining zones has been lifted to ensure continuity of production and ports remain open for exports, he said. Air links have also been restored. Well, this is sounding like a national, rather orderly coup. I'm kind of sort of in favor of this at the moment. Mr. Fang, I will take 2 Carters, a Nixon, and 7 pounds of rusted, various assorted hardware in return for this bullshit, okay? Special forces led by Doumbouya seized power on Sunday after detaining President Alpha Condé, who'd held power since late 2010. The 83-year-old leader has so far resisted pressure to resign, according to 2 people familiar with the matter. Wow, they have anonymous sources over there, too. Gotta be credible, then. Who asked not to be identified because they aren't authorized to speak to the media. That's getting even better. Huh. Sounds a lot like a certain Lord Malarkey I know who keeps telling the press I'm not supposed to answer questions. Doumbouya will present himself as the leader of the transition, the people said. The coup leader has ordered members of a presidential security unit to confine themselves to a barracks outside the capital city of Conakry and banned former officials from leaving the country. He also instructed the secretaries general of Guinea's ministries to take over the role of ministers and the governors of regions to be replaced by military commanders. There were no signs of unrest in Conakry overnight in response to the military takeover by the junta. Guinea is a key global supplier of bauxite, an ore that's processed into alumina and then into aluminum, which is used in cars and cans and other various things, you know, like tinfoil hats. Wow. Bear, add 4 or 5 rolls of tinfoil to the shopping list, please. The bulk of West African nations' bauxite exports are sent to smelters in China. Whoever knew that Panda Land would be involved in this? I am just shocked, I tell you. I really am. The biggest producer of the metal. There's another problem for you. Guinea shipped 82.4 million tons of the mineral globally last year, according to government data. China and Russia on Monday joined the United States and the U.S. in condemning the coup. We condemned a coup and nobody told me? Wow. China opposes coup attempts to seize power and calls for the immediate release of President Condé, Chinese Foreign Minister spokesman Wang Wenbin told reporters in Beijing on Monday. We hope all parties can be cool-headed and exercise restraint. Keep in mind the fundamental interests of the nation and people, address the relevant issue through dialogue and consultation, and safeguard peace and stability in the country. Leaders of 2 African blocs have also pushed for Condé's release. The Economic Community of West African States threatened sanctions against Guinea, while the African Union called for its Peace and Security Council to meet urgently over the matter. Conde's overthrow was necessary to address financial mismanagement and corruption in Guinea, and the deposed leader is safe and has been in contact with his doctors, Doumbouya said on Sunday. The coup has upended a decade of stability in Guinea and will be of concern to other African leaders, according to Eric Humphrey-Smith, Africa analyst at risk intelligence company Verisk Maplecroft. While the feeling among many Guineans is jubilation, make no mistake, this is 2 steps backward for both the country's democracy and the economy, he said in emailed comments. Recovering what until now was a stable and predictable operating environment is anything but a given. So, we're going to have to keep a close eye on Guinea when it comes to bauxite and aluminum reserves, and Pandaland, of course, since apparently, as usual, we don't do anything here. I do know that we recycle aluminum, and I also know that we throw away more aluminum every year than is used to build the entire fleet of U.S. aircraft, and that means all the aircraft flying all over the country. So people, recycle your cans, please. It is ridiculous not to. It is this is one case where recycling makes perfect sense, because getting bauxite to become aluminum is really, really freaking tough. This is not an easy ore to work with. Getting aluminum that is already here to become aluminum again, on the other hand, is extraordinarily easy. This is why recycling aluminum is a good idea. Now, apparently, the Native Americans have lost a bid to halt digging at the Nevada lithium mine site. So let's find out what's going on in Nevada with lithium this week. A U.S. federal judge ruled on Friday that Lithium Americas Corporation may conduct excavation work at Thacker Pass lithium mine site in Nevada, denying a request from Native Americans who said the digging would desecrate an area they believe holds ancestral bones and artifacts. The ruling from Chief Judge Miranda Dew was the second victory in recent weeks for the project, which could become the largest U.S. source of lithium used in electric vehicle batteries. The court is still considering the broader question of whether former President Donald Trump's administration erred when it approved the project in January. Really? That ruling is expected by early 2022. Dew said the Native Americans did not prove the U.S. government failed to properly consult them during the permitting process. Dew in July denied a similar request from environmentalists. Dew said, though, that she was not dismissing all the Native Americans' arguments, but felt bound by existing laws to deny their request. Quote, "This order does not resolve the merit of the tribe's claims," Dew said in her 22-page ruling. Vancouver-based Lithium Americas said it would protect and preserve tribal artifacts. Quote, "We've always been committed to doing this the right way by respecting our neighbors, and we are pleased today's ruling recognizes our efforts," Lithium America's chief executive John Evans told Reuters. No digging can take place until the U.S. Bureau of Land Management issues an Archaeological Resources Protection Act permit. Anybody want to take any bets on how many decades that permit is going to take to get? Oh, great, you know.
I don't know what the official protocol is. They have all, protocol officers.
The Burns Paiute tribe, one of the tribes that brought the lawsuit, noted the Bureau told the court last month the land holds cultural value for Native Americans. If that's the case, well, then there's going to be harm if you start digging into the landscape, said Richard Eichstadt, an attorney for the Burns Paiute. Representatives for the Bureau and 2 other tribes who sued were not immediately available for comment. That project is probably never going to get off the ground at this rate. Just never. Yeah, Argonaut, Salton Sea, California could be huge for lithium. We will see what we will see in that regard. There really is not all that much else going on in the mining world, though there was an interesting spike in uranium the last couple of weeks. Uranium has been doing really well for some reason. So I'm going to see if I can go find us some information on that, because that's a rather unusual thing to be going on these days.
Holding in high regard, absolutely. It's having this guy fucked up. About all you can say was simplify. You got to admire that. Yeah.
Uranium apparently rose about 20%, actually, which is quite good. There is a lot of stuff going on right now with rare earths and various other metals, and it's going to be interesting to see where it goes, because as it stands now, the United States does have some pretty good reserves of rare earths. As it also stands now, our government will not allow anyone to actually exploit those reserves of rare earths anytime in the foreseeable future. And so the vast majority of the planet's rare earths have been tied up by Pandaland. The Chinese have made massive inroads in Africa. They've made massive inroads in other parts of the third world and Australia and elsewhere. And even in Canada, I believe, to some extent, though not as badly as in Africa. So we are seeing here a collision where the developed West wants to save the planet, stop pollution, go net zero by 2030, which means more rare earths and more resources than the entire planet holds several times over. I'm not figuring how they're going to pull that one out yet. At the same time, no one is talking at all about the fact that the vast majority of the actual pollution that's going on in the world is coming out of the developing world, the third world, and China. China is one of the largest producers of pollution in the world. They're very good at making it. And that is part and parcel of the whole Agenda 20, Agenda 30, Great Reset thing, which is not about green energy or going green at all. It is about a transfer of wealth from the first world to China and a transfer of wealth from the first world to the third world. None of this has anything to do with the environment, because none of these people actually know anything about the environment. None of us do, because our Earth is an extraordinarily complex system. You cannot predict any of this stuff. And yes, there are a lot of rare earths in the stands. There's a lot of rare earths in Russia. Africa is extremely rich in rare earths. China is extremely rich in rare earths.
That's scary. But on the other hand,
Yeah, Mr. Fang, I think it's going to be a while before anyone who's not Afghani can get gold claims in Afghanistan, but they do have some extremely rich mineral resources over there. So let's take a look at what Zero Hedge has to say this week. Not going to be reading the articles because that will get the channel shut down. But Aussie Health Chief, COVID will be with us forever, so people will have to get used to endless booster vaccines. Well, now, given that from a biological point of view, every mutation of a virus gets more transmissible but less lethal over time, and given that COVID apparently is already endemic, I don't think you can make a good case for those booster vaccines anymore. But this lady, and I use that term extraordinarily loosely here, apparently thinks you can. Zero Hedge, by the way, put the tagline on that article of "Little hope on the horizon for the inmates of Prison Island." Apparently, a bunch of Chinese junk bonds are falling into free fall on their market, which is really kind of interesting. And there was an anti-vax mama who sold fake vaccination cards that got verified in the New York State database. Good for her. Not going to argue with that one. And the State Department, then the Taliban, reportedly are blocking private rescue planes from departing a certain little war zone. So that is still an ongoing situation. And somebody bought up this past week on Conservative Treehouse. Sundance pointed out we supposedly evacuated anywhere from hundreds to thousands of Americans. The hundreds to thousands that are left are still there because, well, Americans get trapped in foreign countries all the time anyway. And besides, they wanted to stay there. The administration said so. But what Sundance noted, and I have also noted myself because I got curious,
Had it last week, though, man.
where are the videos? Every other time we've had Americans in a sticky situation, like stranded in a foreign country that turned into a war zone, when they've come home, social media has erupted with the videos of the planes, the videos of the crying, happy families reuniting all over social media, people sharing, yay, my brother got home, yay, my uncle got home, yay, our family's back together. And for some reason, we're not seeing any of that right now. Kind of got to wonder about that a little bit. But then again, I kind of got to wonder about a lot of things right now. That's just one of them.
She was covered. I can eat this.
And yes, Mr. Fang,
It's not-
our founding fathers
I've got-
would be very upset at the moment. They most definitely would be very upset at the moment.
But that'd be pretty good.
As to other things,
She can eat that.
add to the list of weird shit that is like randomly disappearing here in Helena, Montana. Bear went to get motor oil last week. I'm not talking the synthetic stuff. I'm talking good old-fashioned real motor oil, not that funny synthetic stuff.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, there was none to be found anywhere, which is a little odd. There was synthetic. There was even some parts synthetic, but there was no ordinary motor oil. And when we went to ye old Walmart today,
Yeah. But, you know, there's-
I went to get some
Holy Christ.
keto candy.
Could be. I don't think you're-
And lo and behold, the shelves were entirely empty. And my ratio yogurt is still missing. I got the last 6 cups of ratio yogurt in the store. They weren't even a flavor I really like, but they were the last 6 cups on the shelves, which makes about the 3rd week in a row that there has been extremely little or no ratio yogurt. It's just really bizarre. It's just one of those bizarre things that is happening these days, I suppose. You know, there's all kinds of them. I have not watched John Adams on HBO, Mr. Fang, because HBO is not in my worldview. I mean, I do not do, I don't do media, I don't do television, I don't do Hollywood any way, shape, or form, and I refuse to have anything to do with cable companies because they're all nuts. Speaking of which, Verizon has apparently gone full woke and is now teaching CRT to all of their employees and making massively woke noises, so I'm going to be looking at a new phone company because I've reached the end of my tolerance for this bullshit. So I'll be taking care of that when I get home after the surgery with Mouth 2.0, which means after I have surgery and Mouth 2.0 has been installed, it may be a little while before I get to talk to you because they're talking about taking out part of my tongue with this as well. And they don't know yet just how much they're going to have to replace or just how hairy and radical this is going to get. So it may be a while before I can talk to you, but if nothing else, I will get on camera and play charades or hold up a whiteboard or something so that you can look at my glorious tinfoil hat, and that will make everybody happy. That should make everybody happy, I hope. Yeah, Mr. Fang, it was really bad. I mean, the stuff that got leaked by one of their whistleblowing employees was just positively ridiculous. It was even worse than Coca-Cola, and I didn't think anybody could get much worse than Coca-Cola. But we all know how that is. And thank you very much. I appreciate all the prayers. I appreciate all the good wishes. Some things that are probably going to go up in price or get in short supply going forward will be bleach continuing to do so, dishwashing detergent continuing to do so, and watch your stealthflation, people. It turns out that a lot of those rolls of toilet paper, people who actually watch their unit pricing per inch and the unit pricing per foot on the toilet paper have reported that here recently, toilet paper has undergone anywhere from a 5 to 10% shrinkflation again. So yeah, they're shrinking your TP rolls. And the same is happening to the tuna, by the way. Tuna across the board, except for Kroger, is now at 113 grams per 5-ounce can. which for anybody who does the math is about 4 ounces per 5 ounce can when it used to be 5.5 ounces per 6 ounce can. Oh, and do not buy Kroger tuna. The Kroger tuna is a measly 85 grams per can for the store brand. The ones that I have that I bought before we left Tucson are freaking 85 grams per can. That is just BS when you can get 113 grams per can from any of the other store brands or from Bumblebee or from Chicken of the Sea. I have not checked Great Value yet. But yes, shrinkflation has now hit toilet paper. So you can expect that to actually be a higher price if they don't raise the price on the shelf. You're already paying anywhere from 5 to 11% more, depending on the figures I have seen online, because it done been shrinkflated. And so have paper towels. Another interesting thing of note is our Walmart lately seems to be running a little short of sheets. No idea why this is, but flat and fitted bed sheet sets and beds in a bag, there are far less patterns available out there. The price has gone up again, and the stock on the shelf is lower than it was. So things are getting a little bit bizarre out in the world. And yeah, Argonaut, China has bought a lot of our infrastructure, which never, ever should have been allowed by any sane administration. But we haven't had a sane administration in decades. So, expecting our politicians not to sell the entire country to foreign powers seems to be a little bit of wishful thinking or cockeyed optimism here. Verizon decided to start a critical race theory training session for their employees. Extremely toxic stuff. I mean, Coca-Cola was just telling their employees, we expect you to be less white. Verizon took it a few steps further, and one of their employees decided to leak some confidential information from these training sessions. And yeah, it was pretty bad. It was the usual stuff of active inclusion, meaning you are expected to actively cover for less productive employees. You are expected to actively kiss people's butts whether they do their job or not. Yeah, see if you can find all the details, Mr. Fang. I didn't see all of it, but what I saw looked bad enough that I was like, I'm looking for a new phone company. Roberts, our Wally World, I don't know whether they've gone back to 24 yet or they're planning to or not. I'm going to be looking into that. I do know that a couple of our local fast food places have increased their sign-on bonus again. We've got fast food places now offering $600 or more as a sign-on bonus. Our Winco still claims to be 24 hours on the website, but I have not been there at odd hours, so I do not know. I'm going to check with them. And yeah, Mr. Fang, Verizon was woke to begin with, but at least they were only low-key woke, and they were not forcing diversity training on their employees. That, as far as I'm concerned, is my red line. I stopped drinking Coca-Cola years ago because Coca-Cola is absolutely disgusting and ridiculous in their politics. I am now drinking Shasta because so far Shasta has been keeping their mouth shut about whatever their political affiliations are. But AT&T, B of A, Chase Bank, Verizon, all the big boys like that are now competing in the woke Olympics to see who can be the most ridiculous as to the hoops that they jump through. And surprisingly enough, Amazon has gotten in on this in a very, very strange way. Amazon apparently finally realized they have a public relations problem on their hands, because I do a lot of surveys. I do surveys for fun and because I get money for surveys, but I do surveys for fun. And here recently I've gotten many surveys where they present the scenario of There is a job fair going on, and a company has posted this notice to explain what they're planning to offer at the job fair. Based on what's in this notice, without knowing who the company is, would you consider going to the job fair? And then they ask the questions, what do you like about, which phrases do you like? Put a smiley emoji on them. Which phrases do you not like? Put a frowny emoji on them. And the blurb from the unidentified company is that the employees are going to be getting a good living wage. They'll have free paid medical time off. They'll have great insurance. They'll have opportunities for advancement. They'll have educational opportunities. It's an inclusive, diverse environment. Welcome to all. The major word salad of buzzwords of all kinds. It's an HR word salad that is supposed to appeal to everybody. So I went through and I was like, yeah, decent wage is a smiley, and healthcare is a smiley, and flexible work schedules is a smiley, and flex sharing, where you can share a schedule with somebody else, is a smiley. Diverse and inclusive workforce is a big frowny face. We foster people's excellence no matter who you are or what color you are, was a big frowny face, because I am so sick of people pandering all over the place. So after you go through this thing, it says, they ask you, how would you feel about interviewing with this company? Do you think this would be a good company to work for? What would you like to see instead? So I answered the questions. And then it says, the company in question is Amazon. How do you feel about it now? And I'm like, oh, fuck no, because we all know Amazon lies through their damn teeth. And they were stupid enough in every single one of these surveys to give you a text box. Mm-hmm. Not just the little radio buttons. We got a text box. So every time I got this in the text box, I was like, Amazon is probably one of the worst, most exploitative companies to work for ever. They are still fighting, paying off multiple OSHA fines because their warehouses are hell on earth. And I would not trust them as far as I could throw them. They may say they're going to do all this, but they won't. So no, I don't buy it. Yep, accountability with marginalized individuals. Yeah, well, part of their definition in the woke world of accountability to marginalized individuals is if a marginalized individual tells anyone that you have done anything, even if they don't say what it was, that they don't like, that makes them uncomfortable, you are supposed to crawl, whine, beg, and apologize in order to keep your job. Now, part of the problem with this is there's a whole lot of malice out there. There are people out there, like, I know women, for instance, if Bear were stupid enough to say to them, hey, that's a really nice outfit you're wearing, they would be screaming sexual harassment right, left, and sideways. Or if somebody says, hey, you look really great today. Oh my God, did I look bad before? Why are you implying I look bad before? Excuse me? There are people like this. And those are the people that these companies are pandering to. They're pandering to a bunch of thin-skinned, spoiled children. And that's why they're starting to lose my money. As soon as I get a replacement, I'm checking T-Mobile right now because T-Mobile runs Mint-Mobile. And if T-Mobile is less woke, I will probably go with them because they have good coverage in Montana. AT&T, forget it. AT&T has been a lost cause for years. And now it turns out Verizon's a lost cause. So I'm looking at like Boost, T-Mobile. I'm looking at everybody else to find out who is at least keeping their mouths shut about being this way. If they can at least keep their mouths shut and not donate to these causes and not virtue signal all over social media and not deliberately try to hire people to fill some intersectional, multicultural diversity pyramid going on, and they have them now, by the way, then I'll let them have my money. But other than that, I'm getting highly annoyed here. I'm just getting highly annoyed. Yeah, and you're right, Argonaut. Truth is not allowed in some circles. But as you've all noticed, shortages are continuing. Shrinkflation is happening and on the rise. So start watching your unit prices and start watching your sizes, because in the last week I have seen people reporting shrinkflation in toilet paper, in paper towels, in toothpaste, in deodorant, in various laundry detergents, in various shampoos, in various canned products. Most specifically, tuna came to my attention a couple of weeks ago. And shrinkflation is just as detrimental to your pantry as overt inflation and price inflation is. Because you may buy 20 cans of roast beef thinking, well, that's going to make 20 meals for me and my family. And then when you see that, wow, there's a lot less in this can than there used to be, all of a sudden you've only got 15 meals for your family. So this is something everybody kind of needs to keep an eye on. Just every once in a while, look at the cans in your kitchen cabinet right now and note the sizes. Note the serving size, because, by the way, green beans have also gone down. A 10-ounce can of green beans used to have 9 ounces of beans in it. It now is averaging between 7.8 and 8.1 ounces when I do them by weight, drained. So it's important to see how the serving sizes are changing on things, because that affects how you manage your long-term pantry. And we're all going to need a long-term pantry. And yeah, Mr. Fang, there's all kinds of credit systems in the world. Yeah, David, just about. It's going to be a case of congratulations. The chocolate ration has been increased from 50 grams to 25 grams this week. Double plus on good stuff. But anyway, I'm going to get going and give the boys back their show so that they can talk mining with you. And remember to stock up. Don't lose track of your crypto. You know, it kind of, I've lost more than a few crypto wallets. It's really difficult sometimes. Buy GameStop and hold GameStop. And Arizona sucks rocks abysmally, totally, and until the end of time. Bye-bye. Okay, everybody, if they have mining questions for you, you might want to get back here and pretend to be professional.
Well, that's better if you pretend to be a professional.
They were talking conspiracy theories in the kitchen. I could hear them.
Yeah.
Without
we
wearing tinfoil hats. The goddesses
We
must
might have been.
Oh. Okay, so there's mining stuff. Do I need to scroll up or what?
Someone was asking about the possibilities for dredging in California and a few other places earlier.
Okay. Let's see. I don't see anything on dredging just yet.
Well, we'll go back to mining. Throw them questions back up if you have them.
Yeah, go ahead and throw the mining questions back on the screen there.
See who all we got. Go from there.
Yeah. In terms of dredging in California, I'm not that familiar. My guess would be good luck. But Chris, if he's still here, would definitely have information on that. There may be some people from California too.
Yep.
But it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Truth Seekers giving you a thumbs up there and everything. Because is dredging or high banking allowed in Montana?
Yes. They do have a permit for it, Argonaut, and you got to go through those hoops. But yeah, it is. And high banking here, that's not so much of an issue. Usually, they just want to make sure that your running your high bank or, more than 10 feet from the creek or whatever. So you're not dumping debris in the creek.
Okay.
High banking isn't an issue really at all. It's the dredging is where it's, you can get a permit to dredge.
Roberts, that would depend entirely on the size and type of the ore body. And if you've got big mines like the ones in Nevada, the big open pits and stuff, 1 gram per ton with enough tonnage and using heap leaching can make a lot of money.
Right.
Our ore waste cutoff when I was doing it was 1/3 of a gram per ton. Anything above that, we made money processing it. Now, when you're talking underground, big companies with significant ore bodies can make it at around 1/10 of an ounce to the ton. If you are a micro miner, like people watching
Right.
here, then you're probably going to want at least 1 ounce to the ton, at least 1 foot wide. That's kind of my rule of thumb. So that'd be, 31, well, depends on whether it's a metric ton or not. If you're talking grams per ton, you're probably talking metric tons. So that'd be 34 grams per metric ton, 31 grams per long ton would be your, at least 1 foot wide. That would be the sort of thing where you go, well, unless there's something really complicated here, we should be able to make money. 1/2 ounce to the ton, 2 foot wide, you can probably make money there.
Yeah, there's a chance.
You know,
Depending on the ore and what you have to do to process.
because right now I'm grinding, 100 pounds a day at about 1 gallon of gas and rehard facing the wear parts every week or two. So I know I'm only running like $5 per 100 pounds cost. So that'd be 5 times. That's $100 a ton grinding cost.
That's not a bad number.
No, it's not. And so these are the sort of things where we should be able to process it for between $100 and $200 a ton, and that runs about 3 grams.
Yeah.
Now, right now at 100 pounds per day, which is only about $60, well, that's not profitable. But all I need is, once I figured out exactly how I'm going to get it out of the solution, in terms of the milling situation, all I need is a bigger agitation tank, and I could easily go to 300 to 500 pounds per day with, still, crushing about $60 per hour, and I don't get paid $60 per hour, so that would work.
Well, to answer that, Mr. Fang, ideally, if you felt it was deep, unreachable, drilling would probably be the best way. The second way would be to drive a shaft, sink a shaft, and test as you go down.
That's a lot more expensive.
A lot more expensive and a lot more work than drilling would be, because you could do reverse circulation drilling probably for, I don't know, $35, $45 a foot and be able to pull sample all the way.
Well, the question though is, how well does that work on placer? Because of the coarseness of the gold.
It'll work with reverse circ. It'll work. You're basically pulling everything that you're, within your casing. You're pulling everything up and being able to screen it and catch it all, catch your samples. And you can see, is there gold there? Is it even worth, trying to dig for? And at what depth?
If you were at an intermediate depth, like say 15, 20 feet, you could probably use an auger, right? They got kind of extendable augers.
Yeah, you could do an auger. You may have a smear factor. It may not be totally accurate, but it can identify the gold.
Yeah.
And that's what, ideally that's what you're trying to do, is identify, is there gold there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So literally a post hole auger with extensions again and again, or a drilling tower with extensions.
Yeah. Now, if you're going for like 10 feet or less, you could use a backhoe just fine.
That would be
right?
the fastest way. 10
Yeah.
to 15, 17 feet. A backhoe is ideally the way. Yeah, a small auger, if you're using a flighted auger with a 8-horse gas motor, they make soil boring equipment and that's similar to a small drilling rig for a water well, except you're using flighted augers and just drill it.
Yeah, there will be some cross contamination.
You'll always get contamination with an auger, but it will identify a couple of things. It'll identify where you get into big rocks or you actually hit bedrock, and it'll identify, is there gold in that gravel?
Well, and you get a bigger sample theoretically if you're using, I mean, a big truck mounted auger,
Right.
you're probably looking at 18-inch holes pretty
You could
easily.
do a bigger hole, yes.
Yeah.
They could even do a cased hole.
Yeah. So there's ways to do it.
They got equipment now, they can do a shaft hole that's 10 feet, for like these power poles and that.
Yeah.
They can drill 100 feet deep with a 10-foot hole.
Yeah. Sure, that's not cheap.
No,
But
it
sometimes
isn't.
it's a lot cheaper than the alternative.
It is. That's the thing, is sometimes the testing's expensive, but it also can tell you whether it's worth even pursuing beyond that point. And in that case, it could be cheaper than coming in thinking you're going to have this great placer to dig or something. And by the time you mobilize all the equipment and get in there and start digging and permitting and everything, and then find out we're not finding any gold or not enough to make any of this even pay.
Well, and the thing is, if you're going deep to get to bedrock, presumably a lot of that's going to be waste.
A lot of times, if it's that deep,
by the time you strip it, it's
40 feet
real
of
expensive,
barren ground that you have to remove to get to the placer gravel.
and then put back.
Yeah, yeah, right.
So yeah, there's a variety of equipment that will do a variety of things, and you'd have to look at your particular application. But if it's 15 feet or less, the backhoe is the easiest, quickest way to do it if it's legal. Yep.
Yep, you can dig the hole, pull the gravel out, push the hole all back shut, throw some seed on it, take the little bit of gravel you want for your test, and go home with it and test it. Or you can test it right on site, feed it right back into the hole.
How far spaced out? How far down? Again, it depends on the situation.
It depends on the site. I mean, if you can identify the limitations of the drainage, from the left edge of the drainage and the right edge, if you can identify the limitations, then probably at least a test hole, every 100 feet across it. And if it's only 100 feet wide, well, then put 2 holes in the, across the drainage 50 feet apart or something.
Yeah.
And that'll tell you a story. And then you can decide, well, do we drill more holes or do we move 300 feet up the drainage and drill 1 or 2 more? And if you're not finding what you're looking for, then you got to make that determination. Do you cut your losses and run right now, or do you keep looking?
Well, and here's a thought. If you can't really see a shape when you just plot nothing but your holes, you probably haven't dug enough holes.
Well, and that's the old timers even, would tell you that you may have to dig 100 holes to find gold. But when you find it, that 100th hole will probably pay for the first 100 you just dug. And there's a lot of truth to that. But that means being committed to what you're going to do and get serious about trying to find it.
Well, once you've found a hole that has gold,
now you can start
to tighten the spacing and step out.
You can start to identify, how does this lay in here, and is there enough to be, economically viable if we go out and spend a lot of money?
Yeah.
Buying bigger equipment or buying equipment and setting up to actually mine it.
Once you've hit something economic, then you would tend to tighten your spacing and box that in, and then start stepping out from that.
We always would, when we're digging or that, try to find is there 1 year's worth of gravel? You know, whether that's 5,000 yards or 10,000 yards, depending on what you're going to run for a plant and equipment. But is there one season of actual mining there? Because once you've got that first season of mining, you can be mining and also go do a test hole occasionally to keep extending that area of interest.
We did something similar with the hard rock,
Drilling. Yeah.
but basically we'd have widely spaced exploration holes that were intercepting ore, and then as we expanded the pit and we needed more, then we put in tighter spacing holes to get a better resolution of what's there. But we knew there was something there already.
Right. And that's true, Mr. Fang. You can dry pan or do soil sampling if you want to spend money on geophysics and stuff. They can do soils. You can do soil samplings across the drainage every, I don't know, depending on the spacing, maybe every 50 feet or every 100 feet. And soil sampling a lot of times will tell you where the hotter areas are or that you're getting hotter, you know.
Well, another
and
thing
they do that in hard rock. That's what we're doing right now, is actually pulling samples, and some of them are soil samples.
Well, another thing you can do in some cases, if in your particular situation the gold is associated with black sands, then quite often you can simply use a magnet to determine how much black sand is where
in a given area,
and have a good idea where the gold should be. But that is not reliable. You have to look at, you know, is it reliable in your area?
Right. It can help lead you there.
Yeah, if you find out it works in your little spot there, oh yeah, any tool you've got that works is a good tool.
Yep.
You know, a part of what you try and do when you're in a new spot is figure out what does the ore look like in the placer. You know, is it certain size cobbles? Is it particular coloration, where often from oxidized black sands, or is it, you know, in the hard rock, you know, what minerals are we looking for that are good and what are not? And that's what you're trying to find, something that you can just look at it and say, yeah, that should be ore. That is a very, very useful thing to be able to do.
Yeah, start to identify things. That's why I tell a lot of guys, if you're going to work in an area, spend enough time in that area to understand the area. Otherwise, you're walking over more value than you're finding by far.
I don't need to write down a note here. That's all done.
You know, another thing is to look at the old maps, identify where there was mines or where there, you know, was placer workings. Gold is found where gold has been found. You know,
usually
that's the best place to start, especially as somebody who doesn't totally understand it. Start working areas that you know they got gold out of. What did they miss? Why did they work it the way they did? And start answering. Ask yourself questions and try to answer.
How deep are you doing soil samples?
Just in the surface.
You never know when to move.
Scrape the debris off a little bit and take just a short soil sample. Just a little bag.
I never know when to move on from digging a hole. Well, dig one really deep.
Yeah.
And you know, when you find some gold showings, dig it deep and see, does it get better? Does it not? What strata?
Right. What kind of
contains the gold?
Rocks, gravel. You know, what layers are you going through?
Yeah. What
and
contains
then,
the gold?
And check those layers. If there's a clay layer, check the clay layer and everything just above it a little bit. And then go down through that into the next level of gravel. And a lot of times, if you get into virgin gravels, you'll have definitely a color change. You may go from gray, brown gravels all of a sudden to a very red gravel or something like that. You at that point, I mean, if you all of a sudden hit really iron stained, unoxidized gravels, you're probably getting into the actual paleo channel of the gold when it was laid down. That stuff had been sealed off with that clay or whatever for, you know, long period of time.
No, David, we are not talking core drill on placers.
No.
core drills do not work on plasters.
Right. No
You-
loose material.
Yeah, you've got to go through
Hard rock.
fairly durable rock so that it doesn't crumble on you. When it crumbles, it just makes life really difficult on core drilling. So you're not talking core drilling. Reverse circulation drilling is basically,
You can pull that forward a little. Oh, I guess maybe you don't have to.
I'll just draw big.
All right. No, reverse circulation drilling is a lot cheaper, David, than core drilling.
Yeah.
Core drilling right now, I don't know. I'm going to say that there are probably $120 a foot to core drill right now based on cost, depending on access. And reverse circ right now, you can probably get done depending on how many feet you're going to do. $35 to $45 a foot, $50 a foot. I mean, it's half the cost or less than core drilling.
Okay. So when you're core drilling, and it is exactly what you're talking, you have a drill bit here, and as you rotate the bit, it literally cuts a cylinder out of the rock and tries to keep it in a cylinder. Okay? And once you go a certain depth, you have to pull that cylinder of rock out, and you keep going. I think wireline drilling, they have an actual wire that goes down here, and there's a sample collection tube, so you can pull that out without having to pull all your steel
Casing,
out.
right? They don't have to pull all the drill steel.
Now, reverse circulation does not remove an intact. I'm going to go bigger here.
There you go.
Okay, so this is your reverse circulation steel, and you have a tricone bit here. And the steel has a center bore and then an outer return bore. There's a fairly thick wall here, but the air is blown down the center here, picks up the chips, and comes back up. And so as the tricone bit grinds the rock into dust and fine gravel and sand, the air flushes it back up the steel where it's collected. Because it's inside the steel, there's no real contamination.
No, it'll grind it up, but it won't contaminate it.
Now, I've done just straight drilling that did fine.
Yeah.
If you've got solid rock here and relatively solid rock you're going down, you don't need the reverse circulation.
You don't.
You just have air flushing.
Or water. You
Grind
can
it
flush
up.
with water.
Yeah, it's a little harder to take your sample though.
Well, you got to run it over a screen so you get the chips out.
Even then, it can be concentrated in the fines.
It can be.
Yeah.
I mean, you do have, you have to do your testing.
Yeah. But anyhow, say what I used to do was I just use a blast hole drill, like an air track drill.
Yeah, rock drill.
And so you have a hole here. You get a drill bit. There's your steel, and the air would come down the steel, blow the chips up, and then we'd have
A collector.
a collection point, and there'd be a gasket here, basically, just a piece of rubber. But you'd have to case, if you're going through soil, you'd have to put casing until you got into rock. But we did just fine. And it's a lot cheaper.
Well, we did that with even tests in the hard rock mine. If you're going to drill some blast holes, just make a piece of funnel out of a piece of a plastic bucket, slide it in that hole after the drill steel's in, and even with the water, you got to pour them back out. You set a gold pan right there, at the base of the wall, go ahead and drill your hole. You're flushing everything back into that pan. Go pan it.
Yeah.
You know, if you're looking for, you know, heavies or whatever, they'll be right there in that pan.
When we were drilling our blast holes, we would collect samples each blast hole, and it would go to the assay lab.
Yep.
So that we'd have really good grade control, because it was pretty variable.
Right.
It would change quick on you.
Yeah. So far, Mr. Fang, the stuff I'm working on is it's going in the right direction right now. It's looking more promising all the time. So we're working on a contract with some guys going long term here into the future, and so far all our results that are coming back, I can't disclose a whole lot about it, but it's getting better and better every day.
So, and the nice thing is, because they've got a mining company that's interested in it, they've got them to pay for all this.
Right. Yeah.
So they're actually getting paid.
Yeah, we're getting paid to work on our own mine, which is a pretty neat deal.
Yeah.
Because luckily I'm doing what I love to do, and that, I mean, what else could you ask for?
Well, I get paid to do what I want to do,
Right.
but it's not my mine.
Well,
So you,
yeah, you know,
yeah, but no, I
if they wanted to
having
hire
fun
me
too.
to go do other mines, I'd probably do it. I mean, you know, I like what I do. I like the, you know, professional level prospecting per se, I
Yeah.
guess.
that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, that's the part I like. I like the hunt.
Yeah, he likes the hunt. I like the challenge of beating the rock into submission. The extractive metallurgy and the mining are more interesting to me than the hunt per se.
Well, I like the mining too, and I can't wait to be there when they're doing the first drill holes. But the hunt is pretty interesting too. There's so many little components that we've went over. I mean, you look at the historical data of an area. You know,
Not correct, Mr. Fang.
you identify the, you know, the old mines in an area. You just keep building your own map basically until you've got this area somewhat figured out. Yeah, well, it can be frustrating at times, but don't give up.
Now, Mr. Fang, no, it wasn't a mining company that attracted him. He attracted the mining company.
I had my claims in there that I thought were interesting, and then I just kept building my own map, and then I went and approached mining companies and brought them, you know, brought their geologists in to look at it and see if they would make me an offer or lease it from me, buy it from me. I mean, there's a lot of different opportunities there if you've got something that they're attracted to. And in this case, we had a company we did work with a little bit and started to get to a point of a contract. And unfortunately, the COVID thing a year ago, or year and a half ago, really made a mess of that whole operation. And I just kept approaching mining companies until I found somebody that was very interested in it. And I feel pretty blessed that we're working with the right guys. I mean, the offers, everything has been very, very fair, very upfront.
I heard it over here somewhere.
Yeah, it's probably up on that shelf there. Yeah, some message.
But, you know, it took, you know, a number of years of hunting and building my own map and learning the area to the point that I probably know more about that area than anybody that's been up there, based on the old workings, based on what my own assay results that I sent in to have third-party stuff done, and just keep learning the area.
Oh, I'm just stupid.
And it's, you know, it's pretty fun to be out in the mountains, wandering around, digging holes and looking. And it's hard not to like the office. Digging open old mines and going in them and looking at them, pulling samples.
Well,
Hey, Chris.
as Fang is there, saying he likes to hunt, but he likes the mining better. That's me too, and that's the nice thing about having different people to do different jobs.
Oh yeah,
Because
that's
if
true.
everyone wanted to do the same thing, the
No.
other stuff wouldn't get done very well.
Right, you got to have that support crew.
Yep. Oh, come on, stupid phone.
And that's, it's all, there's a lot of different parts to it, and you try to do what you're good at and bring in the guys that are better at the other stuff. Oh, definitely, David. If you can talk to any old timers, I mean, we're, unfortunately, a lot of the guys who really mind are leaving us fairly fast if they haven't already. And to talk to some of these old guys that really worked some of these drainages and some of these mines around here back in the 50s and the 60s and maybe even into the 70s, there's a lot of information and a lot of little things you can learn from these guys. So it's definitely worth paying attention. Anybody got any more questions? We'll keep hammering away here.
Yeah, Chris, we had all kinds of questions for you, but
We don't know what they are.
I forget what they are now. To review it. That's the one thing I hate about the live streams. There's so many comments.
Right, you can't read. It's hard to go back.
It's hard to go back. Yep. And so anyhow, yeah, Chris had a close call today with a fire that got started near his house, but they got it knocked down, so that's a good thing. I see we got 24 now, so there's a lot of newbies. Exactly. Just quick recap for anyone who missed it. Eva's surgery is this Friday. Requesting prayers and support. I'll try and get a video up as soon as I can afterwards to give you all an idea of how things went down. Hey, Patrick. And so anyhow, so that's the thing that's, the main issue. The looks like I will be able to get the parts in by tomorrow for the trucks, so we should have that up and running. The leach pad seems to be doing just fine. We're still working on the extraction out of solution. Chris is going to send me some resin and such for that. If anyone's latecomers really interested in the leaching part with the extraction from solution, you might want to review the early part of the video. That's what I was focusing on there. Carbon and resin adsorption, desorption. And that's about it in terms of right now. I'm doing about 100 pounds an hour out at the ranch. I could add hours together per day if I had a bigger tank and to agitate with. Everything else can handle it. It's just a matter of after a little less than an hour, I've ground my ore for the next day. All I can process is 100 pounds per batch, one batch per day. So, come home. Well, I think Jim and I can probably handle it. You put engines together before, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Lots of them.
Last fall, I put this one together. We had a little more to do then because we had piston damage. And so it's just a matter at this point, if the head gasket shows up tomorrow like it's supposed to and it's the right one, then we'll go ahead and install the head. There's a little gasket issue there.
Yeah, kind of blew out between the two cylinders.
And we're going to retorque the other head. That'll also give us a good idea of how bad the torque was. It seemed to me when I was taking the head off that the torque remaining was like 20 to 30 pounds of torque.
Yeah, pretty light.
Not much more than 30. And so that would be a that could easily be the cause of the failure, as it need to retorque the heads.
Yeah.
So we'll retorque the driver's side while we're doing all this, and that'll give us an idea of what it was, and then we'll get this one in, run it for a bit, and then we'll retorque the passenger side head. So assuming it was the torque, backing off, we should fix that. Another possibility my son-in-law came up with was double check your full advance. When you got your vacuum advance hooked up and you're revving the engine about 2,500, make sure it's not over about 28, 30 degrees of advance, or that'll cause detonation, and that will blow your head gaskets and punch holes in pistons. Yep. We're going to double check our torque wrench that I have. We'll set it to, 45. I mean, first I'll set it to 25 for the first tightening. If any of the bolts moves, it's like, oh crap. Then we'll go to 45, and if the bolts are moving, then what I'll probably do is back it off a little bit and see what that is. But then at the shop, we'll get another torque wrench and double check. Set mine to like 45, click it, and then set the shop one to 45 and click it, and make sure that my torque wrench isn't the problem.
Right.
Because if it wasn't putting on enough torque, well, that ain't gonna work.
Yeah.
Yep. And well, Mr. Fang, you don't need a torque wrench on an oil drain plug.
They
Just
recommend
snug.
it, but I've seen too many of them that were stripped because of a torque wrench.
Yeah, I just snug it up a little bit.
Yeah, bang it once with your hand. And
A lot of people do, but a number of experienced mechanics are saying probably don't need it.
no, it's an old 400 Chevy engine. They were pretty good torque,
Yeah.
bolts.
A lot of the new ones, they do what they call torque to yield. When they use the head bolts, they actually deliberately stretch them a little bit. And as such, they're not the same afterwards. So those you do have to replace. These older ones, they didn't have that fancy tech back then. Back in the Stone Age when I was a kid, 65 pounds-feet of torque, final torque, but you're supposed to do it in 3 stages, 25, 45, then 65. Start in the center and spiral out as you go.
Could be.
It could be.
Yeah.
Yep. And so it's not that bad. Again, it's an old engine, so it's pretty simple. Get fancy studs. Yeah, screw you, Chris. I hate studs. Oh. Oh, I'm sure there's a torque spec for everything.
Yeah.
And so that's basically the plan for tomorrow. I need help to get the head in place because it's heavy and you don't want to drop it on the gasket.
No, that's how you end up with another bad gasket.
Yeah. And Chris. But anyhow, the nice thing is it does have alignment pins.
2, yeah.
So
One
you
on each end.
put the gasket in place and it sits right where it's supposed to go. You set the head in place, it goes right where it's supposed to go. Yeah, well, good luck, Mr. Fang. Eva's not likely to approve that. I know I'm not going to be there. I was planning to be there in October for kettle corn stuff, but with Eva's health condition And the fact that my brother's job that he's working right now is going to be ended by then. So he's going to basically fill in for me over there. Nah, I think we can get the head back on.
Yeah, with two of us, we can set that head.
Yeah, it's sitting in the thing. I also put in a block heater, replaced the water pump. I'm going to change out the power steering pump belt. Change the throttle cable, which had some issues. And so that's, you know, I've done a few other little things while I got it all apart. Plus, I'm going to redo the PCV system because the one on the driver's side was just plugged, and apparently the plug wasn't working too well on that one. So I got a lot of oil on that side of the engine. I was looking around for the leak, and then I realized the PCV thing, the little cap I had on it, was just sitting there. Yeah, it got knocked off, you know. And just looking at the oil pattern, there's one thing that it can often be on the back of one of those Chevy small blocks is the oil pressure sender area. Especially this one has a direct reading gauge, so it has a little like 1/8-inch copper tube, and that ferrule could leak. The other thing would normally be the valve cover gasket, but I'm pretty sure it's the PCV. Yeah, hopefully this winter, if things go smoothly, Eva's planning on getting a job, and we'll get her a little runabout car. And I'd like to redo the dash on bugs. There's a lot of stuff I'd like to do there. Because some of it is I just like to have things a little more nicely laid out. For example, I'd like to have a fuel gauge for each tank and a switch that goes side to side instead of up and down. Because to me, it's not intuitive which tank you're on if it's an up-down switch. But if I had, you know, a little panel, a little center console panel there, and just have two gauges and a switch, you know, toggle side to side, pretty intuitively obvious. Yep. And thank you, David.
Thanks, David.
Holy crap.
I would call that false bedrock at that point. If it's that hard, unless you really believe there's something underneath that.
You could always get a demo hammer, you know, rock demolition hammer, and see what's below it, or a drilling rig. It might be worth one hole, but unless there was something good underneath that clay, I wouldn't worry about it. Now, on the other hand, if it was good beneath the clay and you wanted to go tunneling, that would work sweet. You'd have a nice.
Yeah, I mean, if it's that compacted and that hard, I would almost say that's, you know, false bedrock. It's bedrock for as far as you're concerned on your placer.
Yeah, I personally would kind of like to just get one hole through it just to see.
Yeah,
but it might very well be bedrock right underneath it too. It's hard to.
It could very well be that it could be a broken down bedrock already if it's gray.
It could be,
you know, blue.
It could also be like a shale.
Oh yeah.
You know, certain shales might look like that. And BC, where is the bedrock with relation to this clay? Do the records have any statements on that? It would depend on the red clay, Firefox. As a general rule, any old red clay, no. From the right area, you might be able to, but it's not an inherent constituent of red clay. Say they can be together, but it's not a good indicator.
That's true, Chris. You know, I would not discount that.
Well, if it's 25 feet below that clay layer, I'd really like to get through it. And I mean, you could start tunneling with that kind of stuff.
If it was rich enough, BC, what you would do is you would strip as big an area of that off as you can, you know, on top of it, I get a explosives guy in there and blow and blast it so that you can dig it to get to the gravel that's underneath it.
They might be able
If
to rip
that's-
it too.
Yeah, maybe, but boy, ripping is really hard on equipment too.
Not a D9.
Yeah, D9, D10,
Single
it's
ripper.
still, yeah, it's still, you will walk the tracks right off of them.
I never have. Of course, I didn't have worn out equipment.
Yeah,
either.
if it is, you know, a volcanic blue clay or something, and the thing to do would be to, lake bottom, okay. It would be strip as big a area as you possibly can, you know, within reason, and then have somebody come in and blast it. And that way you can scrape it off the top and get it to the gravels underneath it.
Yeah, I'd like to test underneath it and see what it was.
But it has to be rich enough to pay for all that fun.
Yeah, I mean, red clay could easily be associated with gold, but you know, Georgia has a lot of red clay and not a lot of gold. You know, say it's in some areas it can be a good indicator. In most areas, it's probably not. You know, and as we were listening to Eva, she mentioned that Guinea has had a coup, and the area in Guinea there that that gentleman I was talking to had, it wasn't in the red clay. It was in the broken down, highly weathered quartz stringers was where the gold was, but it wasn't in the red clay, and there was a lot of red clay. Oh, yeah, BC. I'd want to know what was underneath.
Oh, definitely. The one hole, you definitely want to know.
Yeah, how much reclamation do you have to do after you dig so
Well,
old?
and is it rich enough to justify what it takes to get to it? That's,
Yeah.
In a lot of cases like that, it very well could justify it,
Sure.
make you a lot of money, but you just got to figure it out.
Yeah, I say it's just one of those things that look at the records first. If the records say, oh yeah, whenever you got this clay layer beneath it is some really good gravel, yeah, okay, fine. If they say, yeah, we found this red clay and it's very, very little gold, it's very pockety, you know, then you might, for example, use a geophysical technique to try and find some concentrations of magnetic materials, i.e. black sand from
Right.
the hydraulic concentrating that was going on before the red clay came in there.
Yep. Just start digging holes, checking
Yeah.
material.
Yep.
That's all you can do.
Hello, Rom. Where are you from?
Glad to see you're here.
Did you just show up? If you did, we've spent a lot of time talking, so I'm not sure what questions you might have. Be sure to ask if you have something.
Definitely.
Rom. I'm trying to think where I've heard a name like that before. Middle East, maybe? Rom? Not sure. Motherlode country, huh?
Okay.
Ah, you're close to Chris then. So if you have any questions,
West Point.
Chris understands your area very well, in all likelihood.
Yep.
How are you doing with the fires, Rom? That's kind of a sketchy situation up there. Or as Eva asked earlier tonight, how many forests are left in California? You know, the smoke here was bad today.
Oh, it was really bad today.
Visibility is
here.
what, about 1.5 miles?
Yeah, it was nasty up here, and it's not from fires here.
Nowhere near us.
Yeah, it's whatever's happening out there.
Yeah, I looked at a satellite the other day, and it looked like the smoke from the coastal range fires in Northern California was coming our way at that time. Yeah,
It's
yeah, I mean, it looks pretty ugly over there. See, Rom? Chris knows what you're talking about. You got any questions for him?
Yeah.
Notice that? The Mokaloom?
Yep.
I used to
Yep.
prospect the Moke. Well, I'm glad to see you're here,
Yeah.
Rom. Most of the talk tonight's been on hard rock leaching sort of stuff. Miner Jim here
Yeah.
does placer. Yeah, it's bad, all right. Chris Georgie is just. I'm not sure if are you south or north of him there. He's downhill from Donner Pass in that area between Reno and Sacramento in the Sierra foothills there. He's probably pretty knowledgeable, Mr. Fang. He's been doing a lot of plastering over the years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Three Rivers North.
Three Rivers North, huh? Okay.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I say Chris lives in that area. Tonight, again, mostly it was some of the details of of leaching for gold from hard rock ores, because that's what I'm basically in the middle of right now. And Jim here, he's working on a copper deposit, so
Yep.
that's keeping him busy. He's not doing too much placer
Yeah.
at the moment.
The placer equipment's parked at this moment.
But he's done
So,
years of placer mining up
Yep.
here, professional.
Yep.
Yeah, not prospecting.
Full time.
Yep. And we've done other stuff. This was sampling, different drilling techniques,
Techniques.
etc. So if you ever have any questions, especially about hard rock, if you come, you can either put a comment on one of my videos or come to the Monday
night,
evening
yeah.
live streams, because we love questions. It works real well, and we have a number of smart people that have done a lot of different things. In this case, Chris is probably about as good an expert on what you're doing as anyone, with Jim here being number 2. But Chris definitely knows the area. Jim knows technique, but
Yeah.
he's not that familiar with that area. But
Nope.
Chris, he knows it like the back of his hand. From IE.
Over there in the desert, I think is what he's.
I'm not sure. There's a bunch of crazies in California.
That's
Chris is not one of them.
no.
But you get near the coast,
There might be.
it's actually, you can feel the difference in the atmosphere. I used to go to San Diego a lot. My mom lived, in San Diego. And when you get in Southern California, there's just kind of this sense of unreality.
A different place.
Everyone's worried about appearance and stuff like that, as opposed to real. I had a friend who was in a metal facility, short-term metal thing, and so we were going to go visit her with her sister and her brother, and her sister was like, "Well, I'm not dressed for it," and I'm like, thinking to myself, yeah, just about any guy would be happy to take you to bed. What do you mean you're not dressed? I mean, she was wearing a nice clean set of overalls and a shirt and this, that, and the other, and it was relatively form-fitting. And it's like, what the heck? Plastic people. I like that. It's almost as good as Geezer is a geek. But yeah. Oh, you've been around for a while then. Yeah, 73. That was before I got into gold. I got into gold
long
1980.
before I did.
Yep. Yep. No, it's a Chris Georgie's your guy there, Rom. Dude knows that area well. But yeah, California is just weird. You get in those big cities, and I mean, literally, I feel a weird atmosphere down there. See what I mean, Rom?
I'm allergic to California.
Literally. We were driving the Central Valley. She was having hay fever and stuff, probably from all the agricultural chemicals or the just the agriculture.
Makes me break out in hives.
Yep.
Terrible place.
Anyhow,
Well,
we got any more questions?
all right.
Oh my goodness. Ouch.
Well, we made it 3 hours so far, so
Yeah.
that's pretty good.
You know what else I found out today, Jim?
What?
I can still drive a clutch just fine.
Oh yeah, stick. Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody lent me their vehicle today so I could go get parts and laundry and groceries and stuff. I do like the interlock that keeps you from being able to turn the starter with you don't have your foot on the clutch though, because that's the one thing I do forget.
I suppose if you're not used to driving.
Chris said improving the reception, Eva.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, a couple thumbs.
Any other questions, guys? Get into.
I'll get back to mining as quick as I can, folks. But of course, Eva takes number one priority. Got to get the truck fixed this week. Although, as far as I'm concerned, he's not verboten yet. Yep. You want to go out to the ranch tomorrow and
We could do that.
swap out some more?
Yeah, we could probably do that.
We might want to do that first thing, and that way we won't have to worry about it later.
Yeah.
Could you go out to the ranch with us, Eva, so you could reprogram that silly timer thingy?
I guess so. I don't want to, but I guess so.
And I say I kind of like to get that reprogrammed. Have you seen any ROM? Because I'm open-minded on this.
I am too.
But
I've been looking all the years I've been in these mountains, and not yet.
the only big feet around here have 4 of them and long claws.
Yeah, be grizzly bears.
Well, Roberts, there's a cover over the tailings pad so that if we got 6 inches of rain overnight, 6 inches would be a lot. There's a possibility that it might overflow, especially if we have more tailings there, but it would not contaminate the tailings. It would simply fill up the reservoir on the upper liner and then overflow the perimeter berm. So essentially, not a problem now that I have the cover on it. So is she an illegal immigrant now? You airdropped her from Oz to. It's okay. In California, nobody will notice. So, sounds good to me. But that's why we put that cover on there. It should be no problem at all. Wow. Too bad you didn't have a chance to get a good shot of that. That would be amazing. Fascinating. Yeah, I said, if there really are Bigfoot, and I am open to the possibility, right? With all the people's cell phones and stuff now, sooner or later they'll get a shot of that rascal.
Somebody will get a good
Yep.
picture.
So anyhow, that's the basic situation. Should have the truck done in time if nothing untoward happens to get Eva to the hospital Friday. And I'll try and let you all know what happened, how things turned out. High probability next week's live stream will be delayed a day or two, so just be aware of that. And but we will get back as soon as possible on that. Yeah, that would be pretty cool,
Yeah.
Chris. Now that I say cool because it'll send a chill up your spine.
Yeah, and it does too.
Yeah.
You think you're being tracked by a mountain lion.
Never had that happen, but I would imagine it would feel kind of interesting.
I seen it in the snow where we come back into camp and you could see where the cat at night had walked around the tent.
Yeah.
You know?
See, this is why I have a steel and aluminum
Well, yeah,
armor around me. Yes.
So my
Excellent, Rom. Yeah, to actually find color metal detecting is usually pretty good.
yeah.
Was that hard rock or placer, Rom? And yeah, I must admit, I don't feel nearly as comfortable in a tent as I do in that camper.
No, not anymore.
When we were, when my brother and I would go down fishing in Mexico there, I found that sleeping on a cot was nice because you weren't too worried about the creepy crawlies. I've caught plenty of tarantulas and scorpions and stuff like that. I know what wanders around at night. And so that was a nice thing too. But yeah, that camper,
No, the
you
idea
feel
of
so
the
comfortable in
idea
there.
of a bear pulling you out of your tent in the middle of the night just doesn't make for comfortable
By the
sleeping.
time he's got an opening into that camper, he's going to be trying to swim upstream against lead.
Yeah.
So we shall see how that works out for him. I know one thing, it'll be very hard on my ears, especially if I'm using the 44. Can you imagine a 44 in that? That'd probably cause permanent hearing damage.
Probably ringing, little ringing.
But it's either going to be the 44 or the 12 gauge, and I don't think in those conditions it's going to make a lot of difference.
Not really.
Yeah.
Shoot first and worry about it later.
You know, what I was thinking is it might be a good idea to like take the 12 gauge and shove the barrel through the window and then fire it on the other side of the window with my eyes closed to make sure blowing back doesn't get in them. Huh. Well, Rom, you need to set up a game camera. A good picture of Bigfoot, a good unequivocal Bigfoot thing, man, that's going to be a lot more valuable than any gold you ever come up with.
Not necessarily, but
If you can prove it.
Yeah, a good picture.
If you can prove Bigfoot, you got it made.
Yep. And I would be careful before I downloaded it off of the camera, because you want somebody to do that can verify that there was no modifications made or whatever. I don't know what that may or may not entail, but yeah. Yeah, I would prefer the hearing damage to the claw marks myself. Yeah. But yeah, that camper does make me feel quite comfortable. It does, and it's warm as can be.
Yeah.
Eva and I were out there a couple weekends ago. I think it was probably in the 40s in the morning, and We were just under a comforter.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, that works pretty good. The engine, on the other hand, is a little more sketchy.
Yeah, we'll get her fixed.
Yeah, if we win the lottery, what we'll do is we'll spend like $30,000 to have it completely reworked. You know, from one bumper to the other. And, you know, the electrical system, the engine, you know, take it
Do
to
it
a
all.
Turbo Horta
Yeah.
Hydro 400,
Yeah.
you know, instead of a 350. Make sure the cooling system is good. Well, around here, there's a lot more bears and crazy people. Move to Montana.
Yeah. Yeah, we're short of crazy people, I think.
Especially out in the field.
Yeah.
The very few are probably in the
But we
cities.
definitely have grizzly bears. This area is getting overrun with them.
Well, we had that woman killed,
Yeah.
about a month ago?
Yeah, something like that, month and a half.
That was within city limits somewhere,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
That was up in
Small town?
Yeah, up in Ovando there.
Okay, I know
Yeah,
where
she
Ovando
was-
is now.
She was in her tent, and that bear.
I heard there was some
Took her
pork
apart.
rinds involved in this.
Yeah, she had a bag of pork rinds or something.
Handy hint, when sleeping in bear country, don't have food in the tent with you.
Never.
Sometimes they can't tell the difference.
Yeah, you end up being food.
Sometimes they can tell the difference. I don't think the bear was after the pork rinds.
Maybe sulfide pyrite. Hey, if he could find gold with a metal detector in a sulfide pyrite type ore, that's really, really good. Well, I'm guessing, Greg, you're more Reno than Tahoe at the moment, although that might change again shortly once they get the fire away. That would be my thought, Chris. I mean, aside from salmon, you know, I'm drawing salmon here, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like candy for bears. But yeah, don't respect nature. Nature will teach you respect the hard way. You may learn posthumously too. But that
Yeah, I'm sure that wasn't her expected ending.
wasn't that. I look at Breitbart all the time, and they have a thing. They got a T-shirt for sale. That says, I'm pretty sure my last words will be, "Well, shit, that didn't work." You know, and that makes sense. Oh, okay. Any more mining questions, anybody? By the way, about what time do you think you'll probably get your phone call tomorrow?
I don't know. I'd probably be up here at 8:30 or something.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be up by then.
Enough to get going.
I was just wondering what.
I will
Time
not
roughly
be
is.
up by then. So do not count on me being out there at the
Yes,
ranch with
the
you.
goddess shall still be ensconced comfortably in her bed.
Yeah, so don't count on me going out to the ranch with you if you're talking 8:30 in the morning.
I think we got a. Where did you put the instructions? That was on that upper shelf, right?
Yeah. The instructions should be on the top shelf.
Pretty simple.
Yeah. I'm
Okay.
sure Jim can figure it out just by looking at it. You can't figure it out because you're blind.
Okay, Tom. There is some concentration of coarse gold in the impact mill, like mine, but that's not a problem when you clean out the mill. It's just laying on the bottom behind the wear plate impactors there. So it's not a problem. It's just a little more complication during a clean out, but don't worry about it. You're probably looking at 50 mesh plus to actually want to stay in the mill. But it's not a problem because of that. It'll all just be right there in the bottom. And depending upon what you're doing, you want to clean out the mill on a regular basis anyway. If nothing else, you're going to be opening it up about every 1,000 pounds or so, just to address the wear plate issues on the rotor. So when you got it out, just put a like a 13x9 baking dish under there, and hose it out. And when you're replacing the perimeter wear plates, the chamber wear plates, I'd also be careful to clean that out. One thing I did find out the hard way is the edge of the chamber wear plates can get pretty sharp. So where they bevel like this, that edge right there can get kind of sharp. So just be careful of that.
Well,
thank you, Rom.
yeah, thanks for joining us.
Chris, that doesn't sound like fun. He says, I've kicked more than one black bear square in the snout through a tent or window screen. I'm glad I have a camper.
Yeah.
Glad we had a camper when we were up on your claims. Anyhow, any more mining questions, anybody? I got a frickin' engine to put together tomorrow. 0.045 inches. Well, if you give me just a second, I can tell you. Inches, 0.046. That is 16 mesh. Okay. 16 mesh, yeah, it'll tend to lay down in the bottom there. Not a problem though. You won't lose it. It's not going to necessarily come out of the mill. If you're doing a quantitative test, like you're going to, process 100 pounds of ore and see how much gold you got in it, then I would definitely clean the mill out too. Okay. And you got attacked by a water buffalo. Well, that sounds bad, Pat.
I heard they're mean too.
You got attacked by a water boo?
That's what he says.
How the heck do you get attacked by a water boo?
Annoy it?
Yeah.
Well, my Aunt Joe's Buttercup Camaro got demolished by a moose.
You're welcome, Ton. That's what we're here for. That's what we like on the live stream. People can ask questions, get a detailed answer, and everyone else gets the answer too that way. It works out well.
Yeah, and a lot of times it'll lead to more questions, which is good too.
Yeah, it's true. Okay. Patrick, you live in Australia. They have things like fierce snakes and huntsman spiders and even, crocodiles. Sleeping on the ground doesn't sound like a good plan.
You have spiders the size of kittens.
But much more fierce. The Sierras, yeah. So anyhow, yeah, I'd be pretty nervous sleeping on the ground in Oz there. Okay, any more questions, anybody? And Rom, yeah, you ever have any questions about your area there too? Chris he's pretty smart. If he doesn't know it, he knows who does. So as we usually close this out, any more questions? Going once. No Argonaut, I do not have any feedback on that yet. My guess is it really hasn't had that much wear on it because Jimmy is pretty busy working, but he hasn't said anything one way or the other. And so I really don't know.
That was T1 plate, right?
Yeah, it was T1.
T1 plate Argonaut.
Yeah. Yeah. I know on my impact mill, which is mild steel with hard facing, the hard facing is lasting pretty good on this ore from Montana B, and it's a lot softer than Ryan stuff. Ryan stuff was was hard quartz. That was really, really abrasive stuff.
That'll wear stuff.
This stuff is substantially less abrasive. I don't know on Jimmy's mill. My mill, the hard facing, it looks like it'll go at least 10 hours. You take care, Rom.
Yep,
Thanks for dropping in.
Thanks for being here.
So in terms of Jimmy's mill, again, I really don't have any good feedback. I know we ran, what was it, about 100 pounds? 150 pounds?
something
How many
like that.
buckets?
I don't know. We did quite a few.
Yeah, I think more like 200 pounds or something through it. 150 to
That
200.
didn't show.
And it just rounded the edge a little bit.
Yeah, just,
I mean, it still had roughly a square edge.
yeah, it just cleaned it up a little bit.
Yeah. Kind of chamfered it. That was it. So my guess on the other mill in the kind of ore I'm running, it would probably go 20 hours or more before just swapping around a wear plate. And Ryan's stuff, you know, a third or a quarter of that in a really hard quartz. But you actually finally got to look at him, huh, Patrick? That's good. Was everything clear? Not too wordy. I tried to make it unambiguous first, and then as condensed as possible second. Sometimes it got a little bit wordy or complicated because of I'm trying to get the precision of information. When you're cutting and welding steel, you don't want to make a boo-boo. It gets annoying. So it got kind of big.
Yeah, but it was buildable from that.
Yeah.
Which was good.
I mean, that's the thing is the assumption is I'm not going to be around to ask a question. So somebody who's never done it before, never seen one before, how well they can do it. Thank you, Robert.
Yeah.
Patrick, you need to get rich. Then you won't be crazy. You'll be eccentric. Okay?
It's a difference.
So that's it. You just get a little money, or make people think you've got money. That's all it's got to be. You've got some hidden somewhere, and you're eccentric. You know? Thank you, Tom. Appreciate that. Birthday Mayona. That's got to be an autofill or something like that because it's just Bertha. Yeah, Eva really, on her cell phone, she gets really annoyed with the autocorrect and everything.
Oh, it can be frustrating.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay, any
My
more?
smartphone is a Puritan.
Yeah. There you go, Patrick. See? That's it. And, if you're in our age group, the women outnumber the men. So, if you're a little eccentric but rich, got your pick, man. Are you married, by the way? I don't think I've ever heard of your family or not or whatever.
Patrick, yeah.
Yeah. But anyhow, glad you liked the plans. Spent a lot of time on those, but I think it was before the season opened up anyway, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was early enough in the
Yeah.
year.
Yeah. A good thing to do during the winter. Oh, we should be coming up with other stuff too. We might have kits that, like the stuff that Chris is coming up with for the spot testing and such. So we might have something like that. Oh, he's apparently got 3 ex-wives and a bunch of lawyers. hopefully
The
the
lawyers are probably more pleasant than the ex-wives, though more expensive.
well, hopefully the lawyers are his kids, and that's his retirement plan. There you go. But anyhow, okay.
All the family you need.
Any other mining questions? Anybody? Going twice. Oh my goodness. Oh. Good night, Miner 49er. Okay.
Thanks for being here,
Good
guys.
night, everybody.
For all the latecomers, the early part of the show was on how to get gold out of solution once you've dissolved it in a leach system. So, any more questions? Number 3. Thank you, Patrick. Patrick sends his praying, little one. And
Thank you, Patrick.
BC Gold sends you his prayers. Night, Glenn.
Yeah, good night, Glenn.
Argonaut.
Yeah,
It does feel like a family, doesn't it?
good group.
Okay, signing off. Good night, Chris. Keep safe.